Welcome to WebEx. Enter your access code or meeting number followed by pound. Enter your attendee ID number followed by pound.
We're good. Okay, we have conquered the gremlins. So I would like to wish everybody a good morning, and we are going to now do roll call. So if the clerk of the board, beg your pardon, was I supposed to do the gravel? Ye God, I'm not used to being violent, right? That's why Mitch sits next to me. Sorry. That's all right. So crazy. Okay, so now I'm going to call the meeting to order of the Solano County Board of Supervisors for June 9th, 2026. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Supervisor James?
Present.
Supervisor Williams?
Here.
Supervisor Mashburn? Here. And Chair Brown?
Here. Before we begin the salute to the flag in a moment of silence, I would like everybody to think of our men and women in the military and hope that they stay safe, as I'm sure everybody's been paying attention to what's happening I'll just let it go with that, as well as everything that happened this past several days in terms of high school graduation, and that's all I'm going to say about that one. So if I could have, oh my God, I can't remember, I apologize. I can't remember her name. I was going to have her do this salute. Yes, thank you. Yes. So, yes. Well, I need somebody to help with the salute of the flag. I'll let one of you ladies help. Okay, here we go. You're leading. Okay. I can do this, all right. I pledge to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Someday. Okay, thank you. That was called a team effort, and we worked very well together. I keep pressing that. All right, so presentation number 1 to the clerk of the board. Do we have any public comment?
I do have 2 callers on the line. I'd like to see if they wish to speak on the agenda item.
All right.
Callers on the line, if you wish to speak on agenda item number 1, please press *3 to raise your hand. Callers on the line, if you wish to speak on agenda item number 1, please press *3 to raise your hand. Ma'am, they're not raising their hand, and I do not have any cards for this item.
All right, would you read the title then?
Yes, ma'am. Adopt and present a resolution recognizing June 12th, 2026 as Women Veterans Recognition Day in Solano County to honor the invaluable contributions of women veterans and service women, celebrate their achievements, and express gratitude for their selfless dedication to duty. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So ordered by a vote of 4-0.
Okay.
And if all women and veterans can come to the podium, would be greatly appreciated. Good morning. Good morning. I'll be presenting this resolution. Actually, when I was elected, I was asked if I could bring forth this resolution, and we have now made this something that we do on a yearly basis. I'll be reading the resolution, but giving remarks will be Ms. Marissa Hannon. She proudly served in the United States Air Force from June 26, 1996 till June 30th. of 2016, retiring after 20 years of dedicated service. Her military career included leadership roles in human resources and equal opportunity, where she supported organizations of up to 26,000 personnel and helped resolve hundreds of discrimination and harassment cases. Today, Marissa serves as a Veterans Service Representative with the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, assisting veterans in accessing the benefits and services they have earned through their service. A passionate advocate for the veteran community, she remains committed to connecting fellow veterans with the resources, support, and opportunities they deserve. Once reading the resolution, and she will share some words with us. This resolution for the Solano County Board of Supervisors recognizing June 12, 2026 as Women's Veteran Recognition Day. Whereas women have proudly served in the United States Armed Forces since the founding of our nation, contributing their talents, skills, courage, and dedication to the defense of our freedoms. And whereas Women Veterans Recognition Day marks the anniversary of the Women's Armed Services Integration Act of 1948, which allowed women to serve permanently in the regular and reserve components of the armed forces. Whereas the sacrifices made by women in uniform, both past and present, have been instrumental in shaping our nation's history and safeguarding its values. Whereas the contributions of veteran women and service women have often gone unrecognized or underappreciated despite their significant impact on military operations, public service, and society. Solano County is home to a vibrant community of women veterans and service women who serve as leaders, role models, and advocates for fellow veterans, their families, and the broader community. And whereas it is fitting and proper to recognize June 12, 2026, also my birthday, as Women Veterans Recognition Day in Solano County, and to pay tribute to the remarkable women who have served and continue to serve our nation with honor, integrity, and distinction. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Solano County Board of Supervisors hereby recognize June 12, 2026 as Women's Veterans Recognition Day in Solano County and encourages all residents to join in honoring the service and sacrifice of women veterans, service women, and expressing appreciation for their invaluable contributions to our community and our country. And at this time, I'll turn this over to Miss Marissa A. Hannon. I said it incorrectly. Thank you. Please give her a round of applause.
Well, I wasn't prepared to speak, but I'm very honored to have been asked to come here and represent the women veterans of Solano County and the women veterans of all branches of service. Like she said, I served 20 years in the Air Force. I served in Iraq. I know the life that we choose to be in the military, and it is an absolute honor, and I will never regret it. And like she said, I work as a Veterans Service Representative currently. Next week I start a new job back at Travis Air Force Base helping active duty members and their families. And that is my goal in life, is to be of service to our country and to our nation and to our veterans and our active duty military. That's all I've ever wanted to do. And I'm very honored to be here today. Thank you.
Any other words from the other ladies? All right. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Supervisors and distinguished guests. And good morning to all of our veterans, especially our women veterans and service women who are here today. Good morning, CVSO, Sims, thank you for sharing this opportunity with us. I do want to thank the board once again for continuing to recognize women veterans and servicewomen for their contributions, not only to our nation, but to our county as well. As you can tell by Ms. Marissa's short story, we still serve even after we take the uniform off. It's just inherently in our DNA. It's who we are as veterans. It's who we are as women, and it's who we are as a community. And so I shouldn't speak for the whole group, but I am. I just want you to say, Supervisor Williams, you spearheaded this, championed this effort, and you keep it going every year, and that means a whole lot to us. It's words cannot express how grateful we are that you uplift us and uphold us in this light, and we appreciate you, and we appreciate this board, and we appreciate this county. So thank you, and that's all I want to say, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, excellent. If we can all go take photo, please, Al. Please join us in this.
Sorry, T. Oh, no, sorry, ladies.
I'm sorry.
Hey, Madam Chair, Board of Supervisors, Supervisors Williams, thank you for inviting me. I'm Al Sims. Since the end of the draft in 1973, the United States has relied entirely on a volunteer force. That is not a small thing. It means that every man and woman who volunteered to serve raised their hand and said, I willingly do this. Women are not a footnote in that story. They are a pillar of it. Today, women comprise 18% of the service members in active duty, over 200,000 service members. They do everything in the service. They fly jets, they command Navy vessels, they lead infantry platoons, they make battlefield decisions that are life and death every day. Any honest military leader will tell you that women do not fill seats in the military. They are a force multiplier in the military. The research is clear. Units that include women demonstrate stronger performance in counterinsurgency and intelligence operations, better community engagement in combat theaters, and measurable improvements in unit cohesion. That is a strategic advantage. In Solano County alone, we are home to thousands of women veterans. Women that flew missions in battle, drove convoys, interrogated detainees, treated the wounded, wrote code, commanded ships, and bore the same risks as every other military service member. Today is a kind of strange time for some of our women veterans. Some voices suggest that somehow their service is conditional, that their place in uniform is a matter of debate rather than a demonstrated fact. That's a lie. Women have bled for this country, they've died for this country, they've been held as prisoners of war, they've had medals of honor, and they've even been pinned as generals. When we undermine the confidence in our service women, we do not strengthen the military, we weaken it. We dishonor everybody who serves, we make it harder to recruit the next generation of warriors, and we will desperately need those recruits. Solano County is not silent on this because we have such a large, vibrant women's population, and all of the military members in our community support you. There are a couple of people in our community that you might not be aware of that you absolutely should be aware of, and they're absolutely my heroes and kind of people I try to role model myself after. One of those people couldn't be with us today. I invited her, but she had family engagements. Her name is Brigadier General Ruth Wong. General Ruth Wong is a trailblazer in every sense of the word. She's a distinguished officer in the U.S. Army. She rose through the ranks to become one of the most senior American women in military service. Living in the Bay Area, she's long been a steadfast figure of the military and veterans community here. Her career spans multiple commands, numerous deployments, a lifetime of breaking barriers. And not only did she serve as a general, she was also the CVSO, Director of Veteran Services for Los Angeles County. Another one of my heroes is here with us today, Delphine Metcalf Foster. You guys know I talk about Delphine all the time. Delphine will tell you that her dad is a Buffalo Soldier, and Buffalo Soldiers are definitely my heroes. First, park rangers in Yosemite, in case you didn't know. And she was also the first woman and black commander, national commander of the DAV, Disabled American Veterans. And in case you don't know, that's a national service organization, probably one of the top 3 or 4 for all veterans in America. So thank you, Delphine, for all you do. Now, in addition to Delphine, I got 2 of my own personals here, Mary Lou and Jill. Mary Lou and Jill, they were not only service members in uniform, they chose, like many of us up here, to serve twice. After putting down the uniform, they decided to come back into Solano County and help our veterans get the benefits they deserve. So thank you, Mary Lou, and thank you, Jill. So sorry for talking so much, because this is definitely our women's time, but please support our women veterans. They are not an extra in the military. They're a critical part of our service. Thank you, ladies.
Is the lady in the green, is she supposed to be a SHU veteran? Sure. The lady in the green, she just got the other shoes, like the shoes coming. It's the Secretary of War that refuses to move them, allow them to get pinned. Okay. Ooh, crunch. Wanda, ready? Okay. To the clerk of the board, item number 2, do we have any public comment?
Callers on the line, if you wish to speak on agenda item number 2, please press *3 to raise your hand. Callers on the line, if you wish to speak on agenda item number 2, please press *3 to raise your hand. I do not have anyone raising their hands, and I do not have any cards.
All right, then would you read the title for agenda item number 2, please?
Adopt and present a resolution recognizing June 19, 2026 as Juneteenth Day in Solano County and authorize displaying the Juneteenth flag at the County Administrative Building. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So ordered by a vote of 4-0.
Presenting for Juneteenth, but I also have, and if Supervisor James like to join me. You're good? All right. Very well. We'll be presenting the resolution, but I'll also be providing a proclamation from my office recognizing Juneteenth, and it's the Sassoon City Youth Commission who has faithfully, 1, they created this program, and 2, they continue to make sure is a pillar light in our community in Sassoon City. All right, so starting with the resolution. Whereas on January 1st, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring that all persons held as slaves within the rebellious states are and henceforth shall be free. And whereas on June 19th, 1865, more than 2.5 years after the issuance of the Emancipation Proclamation, Union troops arrived to Galveston, Texas, and announced that more than 250,000 enslaved black people in Texas were free from bondage. And whereas the end of slavery marked a defining moment in the nation's history and affirmed the recognition of formerly enslaved individuals as citizens rather than property. And whereas on December 6, 1865, the ratification of the 13th Amendment of the United States Constitution formally abolished slavery in the United States. And whereas in 1866, formerly enslaved Texans organized the first annual Jubilee Day celebration on June 19th, a tradition now widely recognized as Juneteenth. And whereas generations of African Americans continue to struggle for equal rights, justice, and protection under the law, contributing immeasurably to the civic, cultural, economic, and social advancement of the nation. And whereas Juneteenth, also known as Emancipation Day or Freedom Day, honors African American resilience, achievements, and the preservation of historical narratives that recognize the ongoing pursuit of liberty, equality, and opportunity. Now, whereas in June of 2021, President Joe Biden signed the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act into law, officially recognized Juneteenth as a federal holiday. And so now be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors hereby recognize June 19th as Juneteenth in Solano County, authorize the display of the Juneteenth flag at the County Administration Building, encouraging all residents to reflect upon the significance of this day in American history, and recommits to the shared responsibility of advancing liberty, equality, and justice for all. Now, the proclamation recognizing Juneteenth in Solano County and Suisun City Youth Commission from the Office of Supervisor Wanda Williams. Whereas the Suisun Youth Commission mission is empowering youth with tools to engage in meaningful discussion that inspires action to grow and enhance knowledge about Suisun City and the world. And whereas the Suisun City Youth Commission spearheaded the inaugural Suisun City Juneteenth celebration in 2022 and has worked tirelessly to continue the celebration annually. And whereas the Suisun City Youth Commission's 7 cornerstones of community service, youth clubs, performing arts, student service organizations, sports, community resources, and project management ensures their commitment to young people. Now, therefore, I, Wanda Williams, County Supervisor of Solano County, do hereby recognize June 19th as Juneteenth Day, and further recognize the Suisun Youth Commission for their commitment to helping young people grow and become leaders in the community. And at this time, I'll ask David Knott to come forward to share some words. A round of applause for him, please.
Madam Chairman, Wanda Williams, good morning. And good morning to all of our community leaders, friends, and honored guests. It is my pleasure and profound honor to accept this recognition on behalf of the Juneteenth Suisun Committee and the Suisun City Youth Commission. It would I would like to begin by expressing my deepest gratitude to Supervisor Williams and the District 3 office for this meaningful acknowledgement of our work. Your support lifts up not only our organization, but the voices of youth in the legacy of freedom and freedom that Juneteenth represents. Juneteenth commemorates a pivotal turning point in American history, the end of slavery and the ongoing journeys towards justice, equality for all. Here in Suisun City, we strive to keep that legacy alive by educating, empowering, uniting our community. Through events, conversations, and partnerships, we continue to honor the sacrifices of those who came before us and to inspire the leaders who will shape tomorrow. I am especially proud of the work done by the Suisun City Youth Commission. Our young people are the heart of this city. Their creativity, compassion, and commitment to service gives us hope for a future where equity and community are not only ideals, but are shared realities. Together, we have organized educational programs, community service projects, and of course, our vibrant Juneteenth celebration that brings everyone together in joy and reflection. This recognition is a testament not just to our efforts, but to the spirit of Suisun City, resilient, diverse, and always reaching for progress. I want to thank every Juneteenth committee member, youth commissioner, community member, and partner who has contributed their energy and passion to these causes. Let us continue to work together, inspire one another, and ensure that freedom, justice, and opportunity are a lived reality for all. On behalf of the Juneteenth Suisun and the Suisun City Youth Commission, thank you for this honor and for entrusting us with the vital work of building a brighter future. Thank you.
No? All right, we'll go down and take a photo. All right, so.
So excuse me. Item number 3, public comment. Madam Clerk, are there any cards or callers for item number 3?
Callers on the line, if you wish to speak on agenda item number 3, please press *3 to raise your hand. Callers on the line, if you wish to speak on agenda item number 3, please press *3 to raise your hand. I have no one raising their hand, and I have no cards for this item.
So would you then read the title of item number 3, please?
Adopt and present a resolution recognizing June 2026 as Gun Violence Awareness Month. Do I have a motion? So ordered by a vote of 4-0. Good morning. Today, I am reading the resolution of the Solano County Board of Supervisors recognizing June 2026 as Gun Violence Awareness Month in Solano County. I'm not going to read the resolution because I'll yield time to those who joined today so that they can share their stories. But I just wanted to give background to why gun violence is recognized every June. And it was because of a 15-year-old girl who was shot and killed in Chicago, Hydea Pendleton. And I know for our community, we are still mourning the loss of Jamario Baker, who was shot and killed while protecting his sister after graduating high school. So I'm joined here by survivors and advocates who work every single day to continue to do the work so that way we don't continue to have these conversations. And I've had the honor of working with them closely, hearing their stories, and just being in community with them. And I'm joined by Moms Demand Action, the Napa chapter, NAMI Solano, and King's Dream, and Californians for Safety and Justice. And first, we're going to hear from Alex from Moms Demand Action. We're going to hear from Aman from King's Dream, and Tanish from Californians for Safety and Justice.
Thank you so much, Supervisor James, and good morning to you all. I am not from here. I'm born and raised in San Francisco, and I live in Contra Costa. But Solano County means something to me because my cousin is from here. It's my cousin who I'm here for. It's my kids who I'm here for. I wear orange because not only am I a volunteer leader for Moms Demand Action, but I'm here because of the survivors that join us today. I'm here because of the community partners that stand behind me as well. Moms Demand Action is the largest grassroots organization for gun violence prevention in the country, but we're not the only ones. We might be the largest, but we're also one of the newest. We stand on the shoulders of survivors and mothers from communities of color that have been doing this for decades. And so I also want to recognize them and their work. Fairfield is something that I will always remember as a child, coming to my cousin's house and spending summers here. My cousin, who sits with us today, she's a graduate from Fairfield High. I, too, took pictures with her on her graduation day back in 1997. I'm sorry to date you. But she sits here with us today, and unfortunately for some people, they don't get that chance. It was also here in Fairfield where my 5-year-old daughter at the time was talking to me about her first intruder drill. We were driving on Highway 80. We were right by the Waterman exit in Fairfield, and she asked me, she said, if I die in a school shooting, what picture would you use to remember me by? And I'll never forget that. She was 5 years old, and she's 13 now, and she still has intruder drills. And so I'm here for her today. I'm here for little Eden, who is back there wearing orange as well. And I hope that one day we don't have to have a month to recognize Gun Violence Awareness Day, because although we're here to demand action, hopefully one day we won't have to take that action because that action has been taken. And we want to hold people accountable in all levels of office, from the school board all the way up to the presidency and Congress. Too many people die every single day in this country from gun violence. It's an average of 130 people, with many more wounded and many more threatened. I'm tired of holding moments of silence. We can do better. I'm tired of thoughts and prayers. We can do better. And so if Hadia Pendleton's friends from Chicago can start a movement and have everybody wear orange for the month of June, you too can take action. You too can create a movement and create change. So I'm asking you, do something today. Talk to your neighbors, talk to your family. Run for office. Support the people that support gun violence prevention. Join us. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Iman Yaduk, and I came to Vallejo at 7 years old as a refugee of the Gulf War. Vallejo has become my home for the past 36 years, where I grew up and raised my 4 children. On Friday, February 18, 2022, my life changed forever. That morning, I received a call from my daughter and son telling me Hakeem has been shot and killed. I didn't believe them. I drove to the scene praying they were wrong. When I arrived, I saw Hakeem's car riddled with bullets. Nearby was a body covered with a sheet, and they would not let me see him. A mother's worst nightmare had become my reality. Hakeem was only 18 years old. He loved everyone, never judged anyone, and had a gift for making people feel seen and valued. He loved football, was preparing for the military, and had his whole future ahead of him. On the day he was killed, he was on his way to pick up a friend so they can go to work. What I want people to understand is that gun violence does not end when the shooting ends. The headlines fade, the community moves on, but families don't. 4 years, 3 months, and 22 days later, I still cry every day for my son. I think about him every day. The trauma has affected my mental health, my physical health, and every part of my life. I've watched loved ones struggle with depression, anxiety, and hopelessness. I have watched family members attempt suicide because of the pain became too much to carry. I sat in a car for more than 2 hours with a family member experiencing a mental health crisis, terrified I might lose someone else I have because of the pain and trauma caused by Hakeem's death. It's all we think about. We already bought 4 graves that are paid off because we're waiting for death. And because Hakeem still remains open, the trauma continues. Every court hearing, every update, every delay, every unanswered questions reopens wounds. Families like mine are re-traumatized over and over again. This is what families endure. This is the part of gun violence people don't see. One of the hardest things for me to live with is believing my son's death could have been prevented. One of the people responsible for taking Hakeem's life was already on probation for gun-related offenses, and while he was living in a house full of guns. He is now in Vacaville State Prison. I was told that he was moved there to be closer to family so he can be rehabilitated. As a mother, I live every day wondering what could have been done differently and whether my son would still be here today. The pain never leaves because while my son's lost his life, my family was given a life sentence. What about rehabilitation for families? The ones who spend years searching for answers, trying to heal while carrying grief that never goes away. What has helped me and saved my life was community. Nomni Solano County introduced me to peer support, reminded me that my mental health matters, and helped me find purpose when I felt lost. Today, as I transition to Executive Director for Nomni Solano County, and Keem's Dream Foundation created in honor of my son, Hakeem Mosleh, I support families impacted by grief, trauma, and gun violence so they don't have to walk this journey alone. Families are suffering, families need support, and families deserve healing, and no family should have to carry this life sentence alone. Thank you.
I don't know how anyone can listen to a testimony like that and not be moved. Thank you, Iman, for all the work that you do. And thank you to Alex and everyone at Moms Demand Action who've always been a partner in this work for survivors. My name is Tanish Hollins. I'm a native San Franciscan. I'm a proud resident of North Vallejo's Country Club Crest neighborhood, and I'm also a survivor of violent crime. I'm the surviving sister of 2 brothers whose lives were taken by gun violence, and a third who successfully surrendered his own life 3 years ago because he could no longer take the trauma and grief that he was carrying. Professionally, I serve as the executive director of Californians for Safety and Justice. We're a statewide advocacy organization working to move policies at the state level that will improve California's justice system and strengthen community-based solutions to crime. I also lead Crime Survivors Speak. It's a statewide network with more than 50,000 members here in California. Members like the ones who are standing behind me who have been a part of our network, who are advocating for accountability, but also healing, rehabilitation, and trauma recovery for unseen and underserved victims of crime, those who are most impacted and least helped by systems. This year, Crime Survivors Speak introduced a piece of legislation at the state level called AB 2247. It's known as the Thrive Act. This is authored by Assemblymember Shadé El-Khoury from South Central Los Angeles and co-sponsored by an incredible organization in the East Bay called Youth Alive, who's also a partner. Thrive stands for Trauma Recovery for Healing, Resilience, Intervention, Violence Prevention, and Empowerment. This bill would provide free mental health services to all youth and young adults up to the age of 25 who witness or experience gun violence. It would make giving them access to mental health services a priority up until the age they are 25, even if it happened before. It would also make eligible young people who have lost their parents, siblings, close family members, and friends eligible for free mental health care. I've made Solano County a priority investment for this piece of legislation. When it passes, it will be a pilot for 3 years, and Solano County is one of the 5 regions that we are hoping these resources will come through. It has already passed through the Assembly, and it's making its way across the Senate floor with very strong support. In the wake of the tragedy that just occurred in Fairfield, everyone in this room understands what is at stake. We can't continue to just respond to the physical injuries or to the crime that perpetuates when violence happens in our community and keep ignoring the emotional and psychological wounds that are left behind, especially those carried by our young people. Every shooting impacts not only a person who was hit, but as you can hear, the collateral consequences that are passed on to parents, children, family members, classmates, people in community who are now carrying trauma with them. The healing of our young people has to be a public safety priority, not just a public health priority. When we invest in trauma recovery, we interrupt cycles of violence. We improve outcomes for our youth, we improve outcomes for our community, and we strengthen the health and safety of our entire community for everyone. When this legislation is passed, I hope to work with the board to make sure that these efforts are expanded and implemented so that more survivors in Solano County get access to trauma recovery, mental health services, the more victims of crime get the immediate support and response that they are so deserving of, and the long-term care that we know is going to lead to the healing and safety of our community. The question before us is not whether or not any of us are carrying trauma. Many of us have been experienced, but specifically our young people. The question is whether or not we're going to invest in the healing that we need to interrupt this cycle so that no one has to experience what those of us who are standing here have experienced again. I want to thank Supervisor James for her leadership. I want to thank the board for their time and attention. And I want to thank the communities that I also stand on the shoulders of who allow us to be in this room sharing our stories to bring safety. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to wrap up to say there are several things that can be done in the meantime. On June 20th, there is Rock the Ride. That is a event to support organizations that are doing the work. There is also a healing circle that is taking place at Liberty Church today, hosted by Broken by Violence. And lastly, I also want to thank Kaiser and the Vallejo Safety and Healing Circle for their monthly meetings that they continue to hold for survivors and community members. So thank you so much, and then we'll go take a picture. And if you want to hold this picture, you can take it.
Items from the public. It is time for us to take public comment. For those of you who are here in person, please complete a speaker card and submit it to the clerk here on my right. The clerk will call your name. Please come forward to the podium promptly and be ready to speak. For those attending the meeting virtually, press *3 to raise your hand and to let the clerk know that you wish to speak under public comment. The clerk will call out the last 2 digits of your phone number to let you know it is time for you to speak. So, to the clerk, please.
First speaker is Niger Edwards.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Chair Brown, and all of the Board of Supervisors, as well as members of the public. My name is Niger Edwards. I am the Human Resources Director for Solano County. A few years ago, we identified that we would need to focus on the health and safety of our employees, and so we created a safety analyst position so that it is specific to that need. After creation of that position and finally recruitment of that position, I am pleased to announce that we have found our safety analyst. Standing with me is Jennifer Hute, who comes to us with, I think, about 30 years worth of safety and compliance experience. 11 of those years spent in OSHA, others spent as a consultant, and then also working with Dominican University. So I am pleased to announce her, and she'll say a couple of words.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Supervisors. I'm very excited to have been selected and have begun this journey to serve the county and the county employees and elevate the safety programs and the safety of all here in the employee community. And I appreciate the very warm welcome. Thank you.
We thank you for saying yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Rhonda Smith.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, and to the community. My name is Rhonda Rashawn Smith, and I am standing as a community volunteer liaison for the Red Cross. I'm here to announce that on Saturday, June 20th, from 9 to 2, the NAACP Vallejo branch number 1081 will be sponsoring a blood drive. We are hoping that each of you will sign up today at redcrossblood.org, enter code NAACP 1081 to schedule an appointment. You may be asking why I took off from work this morning to make this announcement. I'm happy you asked. It's important because Saturday blood drives do not typically happen here in Solano County. There are several factors that impact that, but one I would especially like to highlight, which is volume and the number of volunteer donors. Understanding that many of your constituents are commuters, they often don't have the time to donate during a weekly blood drive. We have worked very hard in establishing this drive on a Saturday for you and your constituents. It happens to be on Juneteenth weekend, which makes it even more significant, understanding the need for donors that can impact those with sickle cell disease. In addition, we are facing a national blood crisis. We need each of you, no matter what your skin color, to attend this blood drive. We have several slots available throughout the day. Again, it is an easy process. I am a consistent blood donor. I would not lie to you and say anything else except that I know it saves lives, it's impactful, it's what our community needs, and we need each of you to become our own ambassadors and share this information with your family and your community. Again, please sign up at redcrossblood.org and enter NAACP 1081 as your code. And I'd like to thank Supervisor Cassandra James for signing up while she was at the dais. Have a great day.
Next speaker is Emmett Tuff.
Well, I'm here to address law enforcement corruption that I had to deal with. Back in '98, I had to deal with the arson that my ex-wife had a hand in. And what I ended up having to deal with is a police cover-up because of the activities that she was involved in that I had no idea. I want to read off my email that I sent to Mr. DeWall. The email is addressed as criminal complaints against Michael Pimentel, the detective who fabricated the police report, Ronald Forsyth, former Sassoon City Chief of Police, and Curtis Cardwell, a former officer of Sassoon City, and the address is obstruction of justice. Attention, Brad DeWall. These three men, as former officers of Sassoon City Police Department, conspired to obstruct my justice of the crime of arson my family and I were victims of. An arson that, because of my ex-wife's involvement in illicit law enforcement activities, unknown to me at the time, occurred. Instead of carrying out their duty to protect and serve, they acted upon a script of nobody knew anything and that I needed to seek help. A script. A script intended to protect the activities my ex-wife was involved in. At this point, I'm aware that essentially she was pulled from these underground activities and aligned into my life. The fact that there were occupants in the house when the arson was committed also makes this an attempted murder case. This is serious. These three men, as former officers of the law, in their actions of trying to cover up and sweep the arson under the rug, became accessories to the crimes of arson and attempted murder. The evidence is the police report itself. Very little of what I told Detective Pimentel is in it. It is a complete and total smear campaign against me, the victim of the crime. Mr. Pimentel, after I mentioned a particular name, dropped his head, then looked back up at me and said, "What if they all say they don't know anything?" At that point, he knew that he was going to be fabricating the police report, and his chief of police, Ron Forsyth, was complicit in this crime being committed. I have suffered this injustice for far too long now. These men need to be held accountable for the crimes committed against my family and I. I'm letting you know, Mr. DeWall, I want my justice. If you decide that you're not going to take action because you have to obey the script, I will not hesitate to publicly express at Solano County Board meetings continued complicity in obstructing my justice by the law enforcement community. You are the head of the law enforcement community in Solano County, and I'm asking you to see to it that I get justice for the crimes committed against me by the law enforcement community.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm
No, just because your time's up.
okay, but you know, I don't want to, I'm not here to shrink myself to a script that the law enforcement community relies on to hide the corruption that I'm being forced to deal with. It's been nearly 30 years, and for 20 years I rose up only to be gaslit over and over and over again. I'm not shrinking myself to fit a narrative that's not true. It's not happening. And I love the way that whoever administers the meetings, videos, I just love the way that they censored my outburst the last time I was here. You know.
Okay.
So.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next speaker is Tracy Stacy.
Okay.
Good morning, supervisors and community. So I wrote this down so I wouldn't get emotional, and hopefully I'm going to try something different this time. So picture an 82-year-old woman who has outlived her spouse. Let me start from the beginning. I'm Tracy Stacy with the Prevention Early Access for Seniors program at Choice and Aging, and it's a crappy time for everybody, right? Lots of cuts. So I just want to humanize kind of some stuff that's going on. So picture an 82-year-old woman who has outlived her spouse, whose children live in another state, and whose world has slowly grown smaller. She doesn't drive anymore, her friends have passed on, her health is fragile, and some days the silence in her apartment is louder than anything else. She isn't asking for much, and she isn't asking for a handout. She's asking to stay connected, to stay safe, and to be seen. For many older adults in our community, the PEACE program is the only place where someone notices if they don't show up, where there's someone to ask if they're okay. It's where depression is caught before it becomes despair or risk. It's where housing instability is identified before it becomes homelessness. And it's where things like people's dignity and choice is preserved. And today, with the transition from Proposition 63 to Prop 1, the PEACE program will no longer exist after 10 years of service to Solano County as of July 1st. The very services that keep women, like I just described, stable are going to be eliminated. When we talk about funding shifts and structural reforms, we are talking about real people, our parents, our grandparents, our neighbors, the people who built the communities we now serve, and we cannot allow them to become invisible during this time of extreme budget cuts and transition. And I know there's a lot of problems to solve, but we gotta remember that it's the people that we're solving them for. So the PEACE program is not just another community service. It's a critical safety net program. It supports and stabilizes the work of programs like Adult Protective Services, IHSS, homeless programs, the hospital system, and the Aging and Disability Resource Connection, for example. When those systems encounter older adults in need, oftentimes the PEACE program is the first referral, and now there's nowhere to send them to. We provide the ongoing support that prevents crisis from happening, from becoming worse, for people for suffering. So without the PEACE program, for example, we will see things like more emergency room visits, more hospital readmissions, more APS referrals, and more homelessness and more recidivism just amongst safety net programs. Our older adults built this community, and they deserve more than to become collateral damage during these funding transitions. So please, I just want to ensure that we remember our older adults. We don't have the Senior Coalition anymore. I'm really excited. I don't know if I think it's public information because it was at the last meeting, but our previous Health and Human Service Director, Jerry Huber, is now on the advisory board for the Area Agency on Aging, which is going to change a whole lot of stuff. I'm excited, and there's a really outstanding Mr. O'Donnell from Napa. But we just need to remember that they deserve for us to be innovative and problem solve, and I want to ensure that older adults remain a priority and that cornerstones for programs that work are protected. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Debbie Toth.
Good morning, Chair, members of the Board of Supervisors, and public. My name is Debbie Toth. I'm the President and CEO of Choice in Aging, and we have the PEACE program. I'm here to talk about that today. It is June, 9th. Our PEACE program ends in 21 days. We have no RFP out publicly. There is state funding available to fund the Behavioral Health Services Act, but we don't know what's happening to it. We know that folks who are getting early intervention, particularly older adults, don't have a pathway forward. We understand that HR 1 has created a cuss word storm that we're all having to deal with, and that has created workload issues for county staff. So we understand the present picture. What we don't understand is why we are not communicating about timelines and timeframes and what gap services are going to fill when we transition from the Mental Health Services Act to the Behavioral Health Services Act. I want to talk about our staff, the staff that have been providing the mental health support for older adults. We know that the largest segment of the population that is committing suicide are older adults in Solano County. To pull their services and not have a plan and not communicate with them is not acceptable. Our staff, who don't know if they're going to have a job July 1st, have continued to stay on serving people. We have raised close to $100,000 to provide 2 additional months of funding from outside of Solano County. We have raised this money to bring to Solano County to cover government cost of services. We really hope we don't have to try and figure out how to cover another month. And we don't know whether or not we're going to see an RFP, when we're going to see that RFP, what that RFP includes, and whether or not services are going to continue. And that's simply not okay. Communication needs to happen so that we can plan. So every day I thank the staff for showing up for work and not knowing if they're going to be able to pay their rent in July, but it's a little much. This is not how we treat community partners. It's not how we treat older adults. It's not how we treat people with mental health concerns. I think we can do better, and I think we will do better moving forward, and I hope we never have this kind of a cuss word storm again related to massive funding cuts. But we request, Choice in Aging requests kindly that we get some sort of communication about the timeline. When is that RFP coming out? When is the RFP response due? What is the timeline for approving those? And then what is the timeline for the contract to be enacted? And is it retroactive to a certain date? Like, we need this information so that we can plan as a nonprofit organization that is 76 years old, and we've only survived because we had great partners. So hopefully we can work this out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, ma'am, I'm going to give one last opportunity for the people online.
Yes,
Callers on the line, if you wish to speak under items from the public, please press *3 to raise your hand. Callers on the line, if you wish to speak under items from the public, please press *3 to raise your hand. Okay, they are not raising their hand, and I have no other cards.
Okay, so we're finished with public comments. So we are now going to approve the consent calendar, but before I start, is there anybody on the board who wants to pull anything?
Ma'am, can we start with the
Alicia, okay, so I knew I was going to mess up. Okay, are there any consent? Okay, I'm looking through my notes.
You're on additions or
Approval of the agenda. Oh, that we haven't even done that. You're right, my bad. That's okay. Yep, because we've been, okay. So I need a motion to approve the agenda, please.
Ma'am, do we have any additions or deletions?
We need to hear from whom?
I'll go ahead and chime
Oh,
in.
Ian.
No changes to the agenda today, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, all right, there we go. God. No, I love it. I was even reading. That's scary. I should go back to teaching square roots.
Ordered by a vote of 4-0.
Okay, so now that we're not doing anything with the agenda, do we go to consent, everybody?
Public comment on.
Public comment. All right, so public comment on consent calendar.
Ma'am, I have no cards. Let me see if there's anyone on the line. Callers on the line, if you wish to speak on an item on the consent calendar, please press *3 to raise your hand. Callers on the line, if you wish to speak on an item on the consent calendar, please press *3 to raise your hand. Okay, I do not have anyone raising their hands.
All right, so are there any consent calendar items, board, that you want to pull or discuss or anything like that? Yes.
I don't want to pull one. I just want to take a second to acknowledge for the public and on the record the retirement of Cindy Rafferty from our Child Support Services Division with literally a quarter century of service to Solano County. So thank you for your service. I hope you enjoy your retirement, ma'am.
Okay. All right. What number was that one?
That was number
18.
18, okay.
No, we have not yet.
No, we haven't. It was just for my notes, just to make sure. I just wanted to thank her too for doing everything that she wanted to do. Is there anybody else to discuss one, pull one to talk about? All right, so then we're not, there you go. Now we're going to, there we go, properly moved and seconded, and we just need to vote on that.
So ordered by a vote of 4-0.
Okay. Okay. All right, then here are my notes, so I do this right. After the vote, go to the middle of page 6. So I'm going to the middle of page 6. In the middle of page 6, looks like we have something with workforce development. Am I doing that
And we're
one
on
right?
agenda item number 23.
Number 20.
Page 9, number
No, she has a different list.
Yeah,
And we're on
okay.
agenda item number 23.
Okay. Well, right now I'm just trying, okay, here we go. Okay, so here we go. I went too far. Okay, there we go. Yes, read the title for item number 23. Yes, please.
Receive a report on the Solano County 2025 Index of Economic and Community Progress.
Okay, so we get Dr. Eiler. I'm sure you're thinking, I had to leave Sonoma State to come here and listen to this.
No worries.
Okay, good morning, Board. Matthew Davis with the County Administrator's Office. I'm here with Dr. Eiler. I'm sure the Board knows Dr. Eiler pretty well, but for the public's sake, I'm going to try to summarize 30 years of experience into 3 sentences. So here we go, okay. So it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Robert Eiler, President of Economic Forensics and Analytics, a Professor of Economics at Sonoma State University. Dr. Eiler is nationally recognized economist who has advised public agencies, private industry, and policymakers on economic development, forecasting, workforce trends, and economic impact analysis. With more than 30 years of experience in academia and applied economics, he brings a practical, data-driven perspective on the economic forces shaping our community and the region. So today, Dr. Eiler will present the 18th Annual Solano County Index of Economic and Community Progress, a report that has helped inform local decision-making and track economic and community trends for nearly 2 decades. Following today's presentation, the index will be posted on the county's Economic Index website and made available for the public. Without further ado, Dr. Eiler.
Thank you, Matthew. And thank you, Madam Chair and the board, for having me. Just as a reminder, this is, as Matthew said, this is the 18th round. I think I've been involved since round 6 or 7. So thank you again for continuing with me in this work. And I'm hoping this provides some guidance. It is some turbulent times, as we're going to talk about here in just a minute. So from a macro side of it, some of the things to consider is we see that job growth is actually still resilient in Solano County. If you look at the state of California, which we'll talk about in just a minute, the job outlook and, let's say, recent past has been a little bit more volatile. The American economy seems to show continued resilience in terms of jobs growth, and Solano County seems to be following more of the national model than, let's say, the state, but we'll talk about that in just a second. Healthcare is really going to be the centerpiece of most of the growth toward the end of the decade. We've seen healthcare be a burgeoning force coming out of the pandemic period, and it's likely to continue, but some of that is related to economic development, which I'll talk about toward the end. The population in Solano County was estimated to have fallen in 2025, and that's also true for the state after a couple of years of increasing, but Dixon and Suisun City actually saw an increase in the estimates, at least for now. We'll see if that holds over the next couple of years as they do revisions, because it's really, really small change, but still saw that increase. And the forecasts going forward remain relatively robust with all the noise and all the thoughts moving toward midterms. Even though we just had our sort of initial round with primaries, the American economy, and even to a certain extent the California economy, the outlook is relatively sanguine. We'll see if that holds. But with that said, the reason we bring that up and the reason the index also has a relatively large macro overview is because it acts as context for what happens here in Solano County. From an uncertainty and opportunity standpoint, we have seen energy prices rise. It's one of the most visible prices you're ever going to see. And it is concerning in terms of a so-called K-shaped economy in the sense we've seen consumption move forward macroeconomically, but the data suggests that a lot of that's driven by higher income individuals rather than lower income individuals because inflation and or energy prices rising both act as regressive taxes. So we want to watch that in terms of that evolution going forward, and that's also true for households and small businesses here in Solano County. The housing market has become marginally more affordable, and this is one of those sort of push and pulls with housing markets. We'll talk about that in just a bit. Healthcare and life sciences remain opportunities for this county, and it's something to watch looking forward in terms of the nexus between economic development and workforce development, how we train people for healthcare, how we get trained up on life sciences jobs, and how much that niche or those niches can be maintained in Solano County is a question for both of those policy movements. And then we'll talk, as another piece of opportunity, we may see federal investment come in toward 2030 and how prepared and where that might happen in Solano County, because a lot of counties are looking at similar investments as it comes in. We are going to see more spending as a federal government over the next few years. It's a matter of how that's realized on the street. So to move through some of the index elements relatively quickly, we're going to move first through jobs. So one of the biggest pieces of this was really tracking employment. And these data show the monthly seasonally adjusted data from January 2010 forward to April 2026, which are the latest data for Solano County. You can see on the far right-hand side that we see this continued increase after seasonal adjustments, which is good. It's reflective of what's happened last year. We saw about 1,100 new workers come to Solano County, and in the last year from April 2026 going back to April 2025, on this graph here, it's about 800 more. So we're seeing some leveling out of growth, but the growth continues. When we look at the labor markets in terms of annual change, so we're going to walk backward now and look at the change from the annual data from 2024 to 2025, it's a little bit more of a mixed bag. So manufacturing's down a little bit, transportation and logistics and utilities, thinking the mix of warehousing jobs, trucking jobs, and jobs in utilities, those are kind of the significant drops in percentage change for Solano County from 24 to 25. But you can see private education and healthcare are kind of the two main columns rising there. Private education is relatively small as a total. It's healthcare that's really the driving force. So if you look across the 58 counties of California, you'll find somewhat similar results for healthcare in terms of just seeing this sort of slow, constant drumbeat of more and more jobs coming in across the healthcare spectrum. That has some implications in two ways in terms of workforce development. One is how we search for workers, and B, how we train workers, which may be offset of each other. This is one of the many puzzles to solve in terms of how higher education prepares workers for healthcare jobs and the rate at which healthcare absorbs them as new employees. We want to keep that timing tight, and that's something that is happening throughout California. And I bring that up because from a Sonoma State standpoint, we are expanding our healthcare coverage, just as a very brief sidebar in another portion of my life. And some of that is really working directly with the healthcare systems and with local hospitals like North Bay Health to make sure that we're syncing up who we're putting out in the market and their ability to take them on. Now, with that said, like I said, those are drivers, at least what we saw in 2025. Construction was up a little bit. We're concerned a little bit about the future of manufacturing in terms of what that means. And as I said before, we may see federal investments come in where manufacturing is a focus of that. This has been a very large sort of platform issue for the current administration. So watch for how that might be coming to Solano County. But otherwise, the broader forecast for manufacturing is slowly sliding in California for multiple reasons. We could have done the whole day today on just that issue. One of the standout outcomes, at least in the data for the index, was the change in personal income per person from the 2024 data. So a couple of caveats for the next few data variables. One is that there's a lot of data in each one of these indices that lag by 1 year. This is one of them. Gross product per person, median household income, or other ones that are sort of standard of living issues. But we saw personal income per person rise quickly in 2024 versus 2023. And this is also true for the state and for the national data, with a little bit off on the national data in terms of the national data is ahead of a little bit from Solano County. Point behind this is the following, is one, we've seen incomes continue to rise. If you look at wage growth has continued for Solano County. At the same time that when inflation started to move down in 2023 and into 2024, you're getting this sort of secondary pop to personal income growth per person because we're thinking about it in inflation-adjusted terms. So if you're getting income growth in the numerator and you're getting inflation growth sliding in the denominator, you're going to get more of a pop in the ratio, and that's why you're seeing some of that growth, which is good. That's the whole point behind looking at standards of living through the lens of purchasing power. So it is a function also of how we've seen continued returns in equity markets and relatively but slowly descending interest rates in 2023 and 2024. But both of those have continued to feed into personal income for those of us that have investments in financial markets, and that's helped some of that growth. We have also seen the proportion of social assistance payments rise marginally in Solano County. That's also a little bit of a creep at the state level and a little bit of a slide at the national level. But the point is that you're seeing a little bit of that expansion as time goes on in terms of the proportion of personal income that's derived from social assistance. And then one of the other little puzzles, like I said, with these data and the way that we measure it, median household income is usually seen as a 5-year average in terms of providing a broader Census Bureau data outcome. You can do 1 year, but the 1 year tend to be more volatile than the 5-year average. Some of the 5-year average, unfortunately, though, has a lot of inflation disturbance inside of it, as well as the post-pandemic period in terms of the dip and then the recovery of median household income. So we saw that actually slide a little bit in the 2024 data, but the supposition is as the pandemic portion of that average fades, we'll see that pick up again. The key is looking at them all together, and that's why this index looks at not only one, but 3 different standard of living measures, including gross product per person, which also was up for Solano County relatively significantly in the 2024 data. On the agricultural side, we don't want to forget our farmers. My family's a farming family from West Sonoma, Marin County, so I always like to see the growth of on the farming side. It is down a little bit in the 2024 data according to the agricultural commissioner, but it is elevated from the pre-pandemic period. Again, that is a mix of outcomes in terms of why we've seen that, but we want to see that continue, and it is also, the state picked up a little bit more than Solano County did on average. The bottom line is we're still up from what we saw before the pandemic, and we're seeing a little bit more of a mix in terms of the products that are driving the agricultural outcomes in Solano County. We saw almonds pick up pretty fast in 2024, and we always have those processed tomatoes kind of at the top as well. So we're watching that closely. The wine industry is one that we're watching very closely regionally because we've had some recent woes, and so because these data are only from 2024, we won't fully realize what we've seen is a downturn in that industry with respect to what's coming out of vineyards, but we expect that to have another downturn in 2025 and probably beyond, maybe toward 2028. So watch for that evolution regionally. Solano County may be in a really nice niche spot in terms of as the wine industry comes back, Solano County may be seen as somewhat of a cousin to Napa in terms of climate, and a place where if you were going to rearrange the way you held your assets, Solano County may be seen as a really good place to engage in more vineyard investment. So watch for that as another opportunity looking forward. Okay, so the next stop is to look at a hiring forecast. We're actually going to look at jobs growth looking toward the end of the decade through two lenses. The first one is going to be where we look at industry growth. So these are ordered in the current size of the number of employees in Solano County, and then the percentage change in those employees looking forward for first the county, which is here, and then the state. So you can see growth is happening across most of these major industry sectors except for agriculture. So that nexus of how agriculture might be fading and the number of jobs are fading a little faster, it's probably because we're using more mechanized agriculture over time. That's the easiest way of explaining that. But that doesn't necessarily hold for the state, which is kind of a funny sidebar in terms of how the state might evolve with respect to how it's hiring in agriculture. Some of this is kind of mixed in forestry hiring, but the preponderance of hiring in that last category is going to be in farming. But on the left-hand side, which is the more maybe important in terms of thinking about economic and workforce development and policy, healthcare, accommodation, food services, which is hotel and restaurants, construction, government, manufacturing for Solano County, those look like toward the end of the decade where we're going to see more growth, at least in a blend of forecasts that exists for the county. So I tend to use what EDD pushes out, what the Department of Finance is now doing in partnership with the Department of Transportation on an annual basis, which is great to see for all 58 counties, as well as Lightcast, which is a private sector provider of labor market information and forecasts. So when you blend those together, those are my blend of those for Solano County and California toward the end of the decade. Bottom line is about 1,280 jobs per annum toward the end of the decade. So the idea is if you look at what's happened since 2022 to 2025 for Solano County, that without a major macroeconomic disturbance is likely to continue forward on an annual basis. So the growth outlook for Solano County looks relatively decent vis-a-vis what we've seen the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years on average. California is also right now has a relatively robust jobs market forecast. The one head scratcher there is to watch the evolution in our more urban areas in terms of how artificial intelligence begins to come in. There's sort of two lines of thinking on that, and I'll stop here real quick and do a sideline on that just briefly. Could have done the whole day on that too, is that there's this sort of science fiction-y aspect of where AI is going with respect to jobs, and then there's the complementary aspect of where it's going. And you should think of those as sequenced. The more science fiction side is probably much down the road if it takes place without any policy intervention whatsoever in terms of just more and more takeover of jobs. The other piece is there'll be more productivity, so let's say rising productivity aspects of it in terms of hiring those technological assets complementary to labor rather than replacing it in the short term. And economists are somewhat split about where we are in that cycle right now. But I think toward 2030, you can bet on that latter piece than, let's say, the end of labor as we know it. On the occupational side, which is kind of the mirror image of how industries hire, which was what we just looked at, this is the evolution of the types of workers that would be hired. So think of this as the skills that get hired against the employers that hire them. These are occupations that are hired. And if you look again on the left-hand side where a lot of the jobs growth is likely to be, it's in things like healthcare, construction, logistics, and then in food preparation, or you can think of kind of in, let's say, restaurants or restaurant-like aspects of other employers. For example, you have a cafe and a restaurant. You're going to hire someone who's a food preparation person, not somebody who's in healthcare, but the hotel will be the employer of that worker. So just think of that as an example of how the last two pieces of data blend. The good thing here is you're watching that basically rise across the board in terms of most of those major occupations. You may find it a little concerning that a lot of that's leaning toward healthcare. The reality of healthcare is that demand drumbeat is not going away. It's just really a matter of how it's shaped over time and what it means for broader economic and workforce development. But healthcare is something we should support. Those are good jobs, they're skilled jobs, and the demand will be there. And it's not that much to think in terms of the borders where if you can't find healthcare here because it's somewhat abandoned, you'll find it in the border areas. Solano County's really has a really strong niche there. It needs to be continued. So before we move on to wrapping up in terms of the more demographic or the community piece versus the economic, we have also tracked what we kind of call social equity indicators, and we're going to break these up into median household income, poverty rates, and ownership when we think more about our households of color. So compared to 2020, 2024 was a little bit more flat. So we're kind of back toward 2020 levels of median household income, specifically for our households of color, and we're down a little bit from 2023. I suggested this before when I talked about median household income. We're seeing much more of the pandemic shadow inside the current data because it's taken up all of it rather than having 2019 lingering as a pre-pandemic peak. It's now the bulk of what we've seen in the latest data is related to the pandemic. So we kind of expected those outcomes. On the poverty rate side, we've seen poverty rates fall versus 2020, but somewhat flat versus last year. Some of this is because inflation's shadow lingering on households means that poverty creeps up a little bit for some households. So it's somewhat flat there. And on the home ownership side, we've seen that pick up specifically for African American households since 2020, but it's pretty flat versus 2023. We're starting to see some general flattening in the housing market, which I'll address in just a second. But as I said, these are 5-year averages generally in terms of how they're reported. We saw gains for African American households for median household income, even though we saw the overall county slip a little bit. We've seen poverty get better also for African American households in Solano County, though we're seeing it sort of trading up on Hispanic and Asian American households. We're seeing that pick up for better or for worse in the latest data. And then home ownership's up for all households except for Hispanic on the margin. So part of that's because we've seen median wages rise, and we're watching how inflation is adjusting the way that we see consumption underneath that. So the game in town when you think about social equity is how are incomes spreading their wings across all households as it rises, and how much does changes in inflation affect what you have in the end to consume, or how exposed you are to changes in the cost of living otherwise. So that what you can think of as the regressive tax of inflation can easily show its face on lower income households. Now, with that said, we've seen kind of a mixed bag in housing. So these data are a forecast looking forward. Each time I come in here, I don't sort of go through the housing data overall. We kind of talk more about where we're headed. So where we're headed is probably to a slower housing market. But if you look at those data for these comparative counties, you're not seeing a lot of change from what you can think of as a margin of error, but they're all negative. Most of that negativity comes from the idea that we have upward pressure on interest rates. We have somewhat still of a fatigue from relatively high prices in housing markets. And we also have a lot of people who would you consider to be in mortgage lock-in, meaning that they are in relatively low rate mortgages. And unless they have an economic reason to leave their home or put it up for sale, they're not doing it, which reduces the existing inventory, but also then reduces the amount of choice, which kind of makes demand and supply somewhat stable, hence relatively low but negative changes in housing markets. We saw this last year when I came to you 12 months ago. We had a very similar forecast, and that's exactly how Solano played out. We saw it basically fall by about 2.1%. That was just had me bread on the money that time, was the prediction I gave last year. So the idea is that we are in this descending market, but it's very slow moving because of those forces on demand and supply being somewhat balanced. Rents are up about $20 a month since 2025, so that's good news. And in fact, if you're not a homeowner, the combination of those two pieces of data are actually very good news. You're seeing more affordability. If you look at the California Association of Realtors Affordability Index, that is up for Solano County relatively strongly in 2025. That's in the index as well. And with rents being relatively flat and prices descending a little bit, those are moving more toward at least relative housing affordability. But as it shows here, we're about $578,000 at the median home prices 2025 ended in Solano County, which is up about 27% from where we were before the pandemic. So it's, like I said right off the top, it's kind of a mixed bag in housing depending on what part of the housing continuum you happen to be in. On the building permit side, we saw another year of slow growth. This is the commercial feet that were permitted in fiscal year 24-25, and I'm sorry, in fact, this should have said 2005 to 25, not 2010. That's on me. We have another titling issue on the next slide, but I'll get to that in a second. Bottom line with the data, you can see it's been very volatile. We had a really good pop in fiscal year 22-23, and then we've seen some sliding down. So we're really thinking about the trend. The trend is we're seeing this sort of slow, steady growth of commercial space, and the episodic aspects of it are usually one project that really pops at one time. One of the things that this does not reflect is potential vacancies in in commercial, so we want to watch that as we do not want to see that accelerate. And that's part of the game between how jobs are going to be created and how they're going to basically occupy current and future spaces. On the housing unit side, we saw just under 1,200 units permitted in fiscal year 2024-25. We should expect relatively similar numbers for this year, maybe down just slightly because of the housing market conditions showing a little bit more of a slip in the forecast. But if interest rates can remain relatively stable and not move up quickly, and housing markets maybe show a little bit more resilience, we might see those housing units pick up a little bit. But those data are going to lag to a certain extent depending on how developers see the evolution of their own portfolios in terms of how they want to build. Now, I kind of said all that, so we'll move on to the next one. Is the population change. So I want to kind of end on the data side with the evolution of population. The Department of Finance every year puts out a new set of population data that then generally accompanies the governor's budget in January and might get briefly revised accompanying the May revise. Solano County has this evolution. If you start in 2020, like I said, the titling unfortunately should have said 2020, 25, and then on to 2050. These data are from 2020 forward on an annualized basis with 2025 as the red dotted line or the index at 100. Pretty good growth. This is California in contrast, so let me walk backward. That's Solano County's growth trajectory as of the latest Department of Finance forecasting from the demographic unit. That's California as a state. That's Sacramento. That is the Bay Area, other counties, which is really more like the core Bay Area. Think Alameda, Contra Costa, San Francisco, San Mateo, and Santa Clara counties. And then this is the North Bay, think Sonoma, Marin, and Napa. Okay, and this is how we usually split up the geography in the index historically. So you can see a real contrast regionally and then at the state in terms of the evolution of population. As I said right off the top, we have fewer people, at least in the latest estimate for Solano County in 2025. There's been relative flatness for most of this region in terms of population. The North Bay is still a place where we have not seen much of a change up since the pandemic, and it is down relatively significantly, as well as San Francisco is down from before the pandemic. For Sonoma and Napa counties, for example, it's down from 2016. So we have long-term population change sort of foundations in this region if you move west and stay north of the bridge. If you look in the core Bay Area, Alameda County and Contra Costa County are really the drivers of how San Francisco, San Mateo, Alameda, and Contra Costa as a group are going to go. And Santa Clara is kind of the wild card in the sense that it has shown relatively robust growth through the pandemic. And we'll see if that continues looking forward or not, or if it sort of reaches its sort of, regional height for the time being. But that's the current evolution as Department of Finance sees it, and that's going to drive a lot of budget decisions in terms of the allocation of funds and where they may come from. So in conclusion, one of the things I did in this index is because we were looking at the 2025 data, I kind of wanted to take a set of what's happened since the pandemic, or at least since 2020, and then what's that mean maybe moving toward 2030. So some considerations is job markets have recovered. One of the things we're watching very closely, which is also true at the state, is the evolution of labor force, or the number of residents that are actually looking for work or working. That has actually picked up across the board in this region as well as the state of California. And if you look at unemployment rates, the unemployment rates have picked up generally across California. Part of that's because we've seen a reemergence of people looking for work, that they have not been as quickly absorbed into jobs as we've seen, let's say, in 2022 and 2023. For Solano County, from an economic development standpoint, we always want to think about niche. Where does Solano County stand out, not so much regionally, but globally? So much of that needs to be thought about, and what hopefully the index tells us, it reveals some of those strengths and where some things could be shorn up. We have a lot of policy uncertainty, specifically around the cost of living. We will see how energy prices remain elevated and what that might mean for how supply chains start to absorb those heightened costs. We haven't quite seen that yet, but summer always is a time in which we have a natural increase in demand for gasoline. And as that increases, what that means in terms of more of the structural aspects of what will happen with gas prices and how it will affect other energy markets. We're watching that very closely vis-a-vis what we're seeing geopolitically as economists. There's competition all over the place. So when we think about frontier technology and the evolution of tech businesses, which usually is always like that dangling little gold sort of fishing lure out there for economic and workforce development, we want to be thinking about where does the niche of Solano County lie. So that competition is rising. So even if you think you have niche, you've got to think about how you compete regionally for global eyeballs. And as I said many times, healthcare will be the key component of growth looking forward as a driving force. It doesn't mean you can forget about it, but it'll be something that will be this constant engine of goodness. But it's a matter of the sort of opportunity cost of what it'll bring alongside with respect to economic and workforce development. So with that, thank you again for letting me do this work for you, and I'll take your questions.
Okay. All right, Supervisor Williams, then I'll go to Supervisor Mashburn.
Thank you, Dr. Eiler, for your in-depth analyses and update for the board.
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to ask, in reference to going back to, let's see. All right, so slide, I guess, 8 is the hiring forecast for 2026 through 30.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we have always been said we're the manufacturing hub, right? Because of the I-80. And then we, as you know, recently lost a lot of manufacturing jobs. And then when I look at the forecast here, it looks like, is it shrinking or?
It's actually going up just a little bit. So manufacturing is the 5th, moving left to right. Are you looking at the one that starts with healthcare and social assistance?
Yes, I think that's not the one I wanted to look at.
Okay.
But, because at first you said it was down, then you said it was up. So
Oh, I'm
that's
sorry.
what I thought.
So manufacturing has, in the last year, moved down in terms of the total number of employees in Solano County, but the forecast toward 2030 looks marginally more positive, meaning that it looks like it's going to go up a little bit. So it looks like it's going to go up about 0.5% from the current level on an annual basis.
Got it. Okay.
So slow moving,
It's
positive.
slow moving. And can you tell me what factors will be that we can look at to determine or watch this growth? Because if we are looking at, you know, as a county on regional level, right, how do we compete?
Mm-hmm.
And if we're going to invest in manufacturing, then my question then becomes, well, what areas, I don't know if you can answer this, what areas in manufacturing could we look to as we consider economic growth in the county?
So the sub-industries that I know there's been some economic development focus on, and it's been life sciences, has been advanced manufacturing generally in terms of, let's say, technical equipment. You may also have a lot of food and beverage manufacturing, even though you may be on the precipice of losing a large beverage manufacturer. It doesn't mean that those folks aren't going to be reabsorbed in some fashion in other food and beverage manufacturing industries, because there's a very wide breadth of possibilities there, from everything from a local small brewer to a bakery to all the way back up to, let's say, you know, a larger agriculture, like a processing plant for agricultural goods. You can have that across the board in terms of what the history and current footprint of Solano County have available. The trick is whether or not you do reabsorb those folks. So part of that's also, I think, and this kind of gets already at least a way of answering more broadly your question, is Solano County has good logistics in terms of being able to reach 2 major markets, and with respect to Sacramento and the Bay Area, and that's been a niche it's had, just sort of, you know, God-given based on the geography. But utilizing that, a place of relatively lower cost space, the beauty of, or I shouldn't say the beauty of it, but one of the benefits potentially of having the change with InBev might be because now, or you'll have now, a labor force that's ready to do food and beverage manufacturing that is now needing a job. Well, the space and the workers now match in such a way to attract another investor. There may be some movement on shipbuilding. That's kind of, I think, the sort of elephant in the room in terms of what will happen there as a as sort of a combination of federal money, private sector money, space, the utilization of where that might happen near the water. That's also a place, though, you might see something happen toward 2030 to watch. So the combination of all those plus the change in manufacturing downward kind of blend to something that looks marginally positive, but not shockingly positive. Is that helpful?
That did help. One question last question, because we didn't talk about, we talked about jobs, but in reference to the manufacturing jobs, and of course we see a decline in agriculture, and I know what you were saying about wine industry, how that's had a little bit of a hit due to the fact that Gen X and others aren't really consuming a lot of wine. And then we had those, we couldn't export to Canada, which consumes a large proportion of our wine. But when we're thinking about jobs for Solano County residents, are these jobs, will they pay $25 more an hour and up? Or we're looking more at like 18, I'm just trying to figure out, well, what type of job is it that we're attracting in reference to paying our residents so that they don't have to commute so much to Sacramento or to the East Bay?
So healthcare and manufacturing are two really good industries to look at relatively high-paying jobs, at least historically in the current footprint in the state of California. What's tricky is as you see some of those industries increase, there may be more demand for lower-paying jobs to service those workers and the residents that sort of come or are already here in Solano County as their incomes rise. So it's very difficult to focus on one type, or let's say 3 or 4 different types of relatively high-paying jobs without accelerating growth in some of the lower-paying jobs parallel. It's the nature of how regional economy works. So, but those healthcare, that's why I said earlier, the beauty of healthcare is it's bringing those kind of jobs to Solano County, and it should be supported on both the economic and workforce development side. But if you're looking at more global niche, manufacturing is historically a way to get that done, but it's not an automatic sell. You got to be out there and pounding the pavement and making sure that you're telling a story that an investor wants to hear. But those would be the two industries right off the top to think about, that the engine's here. Whether or not it can continue will be the big question, and that's true regionally, not just in Solano County.
Thank you.
Of course.
Hey, Doc, I'm going to ask a couple of different types of questions. The first is I'm going to ask you to be the professor and to teach us something. At the beginning of your presentation, you spoke to us about several things. One of those is a K-shaped economy, which we are in, or headed towards. I would say we were in. And the second is that inflation caused by or as a symptom of the K-shaped economy is acting as a regressive tax. Mm-hmm. And can you explain that for the edification of this board and the public? What does that mean, that inflation is acting as a regressive tax? And in Solano County, of our residents, who is that affecting the most?
Sure, and thank you for those questions. Let me do them in backward order. Inflation is seen as a regressive tax because the percentage of your income you're paying for goods is rising as inflation rises for lower to middle income households. Those are the ones that have more risk exposure to that, the nature of how inflation affects a household. And so we think of it as a regressive tax because as inflation goes up, it pushes more of the cost of that inflation onto lower and middle income households versus higher income households. Correct. More, you can think of it as more of the so-called tax burden. Correct. And a lot of that's driven by how much more of a percentage of your disposable income or the income you have to pay that you're now paying for goods and services as a function of inflation rather than as a function of your own change in consumption. So that's the idea of a regressive tax in a nutshell. Sales taxes also have a regressive tax nature by the way that they're set up. So that's another analog to thinking about how lower to middle income households can be affected on the margin by a change in prices upward that is more maybe coming more from a supply side or a policy change than, let's say, the demand side of it. The K-shaped economy could drive some of that. So a K-shaped economy in essence is that you have higher income earners who are driving the broader economic outcomes because of their own consumption and investment pattern versus lower to middle income households. So the nature of the gains for households has now become K-shaped, meaning that high income households are generating faster growth than lower income households, to a certain extent feeding off of each other. If you think of the growth of consumption from higher income households as driving some of the inflation pressure, that can force some more of the lower leg of the K down with respect to the lower and middle income households who are slipping. So one of the things that we don't like as economists from a social equity perspective is when you have economic growth, but it has a K-shape to it, the equity that's happening for lower and middle income households is slipping vis-a-vis the higher. Some of that's because the higher income households have more equity market exposure, and they're able to either make current decisions off what they think will be future wealth, with the idea that I can spend now and pay for it later, where lower to middle income households generally do not have as much exposure to equity markets and hence cannot make those kind of marginal decisions. Does that help?
It does, and so that would lead into my next question is that given that, because we don't have that statistic here, how would Solano County's households, low income, median income, and the upper income look? Right? How many people do we have in that upper income bracket? How many 4 to 5 percenters do we have in Solano County versus everybody else?
Not that many.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
No, I don't have the proportion in my head, but we can get you those data. They should be somewhere in the index. I just don't have the percentage off the top of my head.
that would be great data to have, and the reason for that is, and you touched on this, is that policies or taxes, being sales taxes, which every city in our county has on the ballot, have that impact on a greater proportion of residents within our county when those are enacted, who are at the middle and lower income level, right? And right now, with the fraying of the social safety net, those folks are already seeing a burden because of the impacts of of inflation, right? That regressive
or you can
tax.
think of it as the two feeding off of each other in the sense that if I'm concerned about not having healthcare available, I might not be consuming as much now, with the idea I'm going to have to consume healthcare later.
Absolutely. And so that would all be vital information for us to have and the public to be able to view, but for us to have going forward when we have to make policy decisions on things. That would be important for us.
We'll make a note of that.
The other is, a question that I had, is that in this, and this is the perfect slide here, where in this, our single largest employer in the county is Travis Air Force Base. Where does that fall in here? Is that the government? Is that divided up amongst all of these? Is it because they have
it's in
food
government.
and health? And
It's technically in government.
okay, so we're not expecting a lot of growth out of anything around them or say the prisons. That's our second largest employer with over 1,100 employees. We're not expecting anything in any of those markets. Nothing's going to.
I mean, this graph it's good we have this up. It looks like it is going to be positive, but very slow positive. But remember, you're starting from a very large base value. So one of the things, and I'm glad you brought this up because I should have said this earlier, is just a piece of clarification. I look at percentage changes in a lot of these graphs simply to be able to compare Solano County to a much larger market, which is California, and just kind of show the changes. But in some cases, you might see relatively small percentage changes because you're starting from a relatively large base number, and the number of bodies that are affected is maybe relatively large, but the percentage change might be relatively small.
That was where I was going to go next.
So when you look at government here, it looks like it's going to slowly creep for both Solano County and California, and the numbers proportionate are relatively large in both cases. So we're not necessarily seeing a fade in that, which is somewhat intriguing if you think about the federal cuts last year to employment. Some of that has sort of slowly crept back in based on either court decisions or prudence or some mix thereof. Bottom line is that it looks like it's going to continue to creep up. And if you're going to spend more money as a federal government and as a state government, you're going to see more people working.
Yeah.
So how much that will kind of turn into an augmentation of what's happening at Travis or what's happening at the county of Solano or what's happening at the state of California is currently somewhat unknown depending on how those funds are deployed.
All right. And then lastly, Doc, when we talk about agriculture, and we see a decrease here for us with regard to the number of jobs in agriculture, but we talk about an area in your presentation, you talked at the end about where we as a county need to look for places where we could be a global standout. That is one of the areas that, for me, that resonates the most. because in agriculture, we export over 100 different crops out of Solano County, and they're all specialty crops, and almonds was a good example. Almonds is a tough crop because depending upon weather and conditions, you know, there were several years when we lost that as our top crop because of those factors that we have no control over. But we do have control over policies as a board that help promote agriculture and help stimulate that piece of the agricultural economy and help us make that global footprint. My question would be, what do we got to do that and create jobs too, right? Our output and our crop reports and all the rest of that we see has been fairly consistent and is increasing for Solano County, but the jobs are not. So how do we meld those two so that we can achieve both goals?
Yeah, a classic strategy would be to look for supply chain partners. So how much more can you integrate the supply chain? Do you have an ability to serve, if you have the raw commodity, do you have an ability to then process that commodity and prepare it or manufacture it for sale in a finished form? So you can think about that in two ways. For example, if you have more almonds here and you have a facility that could become the canning or the packaging for almonds, expand that. On the winery side, it looks brutal right now, but if you think 4 or 5 years from now, when a lot of the chaff has been separated to a certain extent from what the industry built up going into the pandemic and through the pandemic, if a lot of those businesses are absorbed and go away and leave the real players in the room, those real players may look at Solano County as a place to expand their footprint. And if they do, that is going to bring vineyard, winery, tasting rooms, and other sort of retail partners
Bottle
alongside of it.
manufacturing, all that.
So think of the winery as the bottle manufacturer. You're integrating the supply chain. So where agriculture has the largest footprint is not just in the farm, but how the farm is integrated to other parts of the local economy in such a way to capture a lot of that so-called value-added income all the way to the consumer. That's the beauty of what Napa and Sonoma County have done for decades with respect to the wine industry, from dirt all the way to a hotel room.
That's great. That's one of the things that I think that it's going to be a pleasure to bring to the board with regard to the SALT grant as we're working through on that. There are several instances within that, and I'm getting ahead of myself on that one because that's going to be a presentation here coming up. I don't want to steal Ed's thunder, but that's going to be something that's a focus of part of that grant, is that those supporting industries for agriculture we need to look at. The difficult piece for that is the infrastructure that's needed for us to be able to promote that type of manufacturing. But that is also absolutely a policy or a set of policies that this board has the ability to initiate, is to help incentivize those industries and incentivize the infrastructure to support those. So anyway, thank you, Doc. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Oh, I thought you were done.
Oh.
I just had one last question, and that was for leisure and hospitality. I noticed we had a small increase, but we're expecting the Pacific Flyway to be built. There's opportunities also with the Delta where we can have some tourism there. So I wanted to know, how could we, what direction could we go to help increase that area as well, and our leisure and hospitality?
It's very similar to some of the other industries we just discussed, in the sense you've got to think about, why would people come to Solano County, and are you giving them let's say, a regionally differential experience or differentiable experience? That'll be something that, from an economic development and sort of a visitor development, or you can think of as a destination management standpoint, would have to be considered as to, if you build out those assets, how do you market those assets, and where should you go with that marketing to drive people to show up? And then the jobs will come as a result of the revenues that would come from them. So think of it that way. So that the trick, and one of the things I made, or one of the points I made at the end, is it's regionally very competitive. And I said it more generally, but tourism is a place where there's an enormous amount of regional competition. Okay. So it needs to really fit a niche that says, wow, this is a different experience for me, and this is why I'm coming there.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Okay.
Yes, it did.
You're welcome.
Okay, Supervisor James?
Thank you. And thank you for the questions, because like, as I was sitting here listening to the presentation and listening to like your questions, some things that had came up was like, which infrastructure investments should we prioritize? to support like the business attraction, the workforce development, et cetera, and also like what cross-sector partnerships are necessary to improve outcomes overall. And I am asking that question to you.
You're asking me,
Dr.
right?
Yes.
That's what you want. You don't want to make a
Yes.
statement. You ask a question. So on the infrastructure side, I mean, they're the classics. Do you have enough water? Do you have enough power? Do you have an inventory for both of those to kind of understand what your maximum possibility might be? The water is obviously somewhat trickier, but are there other ways in which you can make investments on the power side? So there's a lot of communities, for example, who are thinking that they're going to attract things like data centers and then maybe sort of a second ring around that, related technology businesses by increasing their power infrastructure. That's not shown its face to be a huge job generator on the front end. We'll see if it is on the sort of in the medium term on the backside of that. But those would be two right off the top. And then do you have broadband everywhere? And is the broadband speed the correct speed to bring in a wide variety of businesses? And generally, we kind of feel like we've gotten to kind of a plateau on broadband, but you've got to think there's maybe another level coming. Those kind of assets are another one to inventory. With respect to thinking about the sort of cross-industry partnerships, we discussed that a little bit when I talked about integrating supply chains. So if you have an ability to manufacture, do you have the raw materials for manufacturing or the raw commodities locally that you can bring both of those together? In the case where you have something that might be attractive for visitors, is there another component? The wine industry is probably the easiest example of that. There's been a lot of places that have tried to do so-called ag tourism, and it really depends on how you're ready for that. Once again, my family, as a farm family, there's a lot of ag tourism in West Sonoma and Napa or Marin counties. The last thing that my family would want to see is a bunch of people tromping around on a sheep and cattle farm. So thinking about that at some point, no matter what your strategy is, you've got to get the providers of that experience or that commodity on board with that strategy. So how you integrate is going to depend on the space you have. So you want to do a space inventory and the diversity of that space, and how you might be able to match that up with certain other industry partners. So that kind of connects the two together, that when you think about cross-industry strategies, you need to think about, do you have the assets to really bring those two together from a supply chain standpoint, meaning from a sort of manufacturer through all the way to retail, or from a producer through manufacturing to retail, depending on what you have here. The ag one's the easiest example of that. Are you prepared for those kind of partnerships? So when you think about economic and workforce development strategies, those are kind of things to think about. Do you have the trained personnel? Do you have the space? Do you have the infrastructure?
No, thank you for saying that, because I'm looking at the workforce development director sitting in the audience right now, and how we are having the conversations. And also, like, what I think about is, like, our county is very vast. Like, South County is very different from North County. And just thinking about, like, the role of regional transit connections, and how are we connecting the county from the south end to the north end to the east to the west, and how does that improve our like economic index, so those who within the county can access the various amenities that we have and hold.
Yeah, so if you think about just the ferry stop in Vallejo is a really good example of sort of the western portion of Solano County and having a unique asset with respect to transportation. What you build up there in terms of showcasing what you could do in Solano County once you get off the ferry is one strategy just to try. I did some work in Vallejo a few years ago where we said that the ferry terminal is a place where you shouldn't just look at it as a person place, but as a place to really showcase what's happening not only in Vallejo, but throughout other partnerships, perhaps with Napa County, but also Solano County. So those kind of actions you can take. I don't know, for example, looking down the road, whether or not we'll have some connection between the SMART train in Sonoma and Marin counties, BART, the Amtrak, the Capital Corridor train, and having kind of an integrated system. That might be very fruitful and helpful, but I'll probably be long gone on a Florida beach someplace when all that's done, or playing golf, hopefully someplace. But those are some things to think about. Are you constrained in certain ways to move people? Again, the beauty of Solano County is it's got a lot of transportation infrastructure in terms of moving people east-west. So if you can lean into that a little bit in terms of how you set assets up to take advantage of folks who want to move east-west or see that as an easier way of getting around. Those are some things to think about in terms of strategies. The regional competition is always the one thing that should sort of eat in the back of your mind, is no matter what you do from sort of an integrative strategy standpoint, how do you look regionally and globally to people that you want to have come here, whether it is to set up a new business or to visit.
And just two more questions. And I know that we're having like general conversation, but for me, it's helpful just like to bring it down a little bit around like our current living wage in Solano County. Like, what is the current living wage for individuals or families? And how does it compare to the prevailing wages across major employment sectors?
So the living wage, there's no real generally accepted source short of what's called the MIT living wage calculator with respect to a living wage. I think the Solano County one, the last time I saw it, is just under $50 an hour for, and now I'm trying to remember the recesses of my mind. My last time I looked at it was a few months ago. I think it's just around $50 an hour for an adult that's working with one child and 2 adults working in a household. I mean, one adult working, I'm sorry, one adult not working and 1 child at home, to be a so-called living wage. Okay. But as an economist, I have to put some caution into that statement with the idea that that living wages are a different take depending on who you are, right? And depending on where you live. So the one beauty of the MIT living wage calculators, if you look at it across California, you're going to see different living wages all over the place because the cost of living locally is different from one place to another. Now for Solano County, if you look at the region, Solano County has a relatively lower, not super lower, but lower living wage because the cost of living in Solano County is marginally lower than some of the regional competitors. So when you take that into account, that's the rationale behind how the living wage works. But my memory says it's somewhere around $50 an hour. Okay. But again, it's household specific. If you have more kids, it changes what you need to do at home, hence the cost of living.
Right. No, and thank you for that because it helps me, like as a policymaker, when we're talking about policies, what additional data would be needed to understand like the disparities when we start talking about economics, income, and like inflation, and how far a dollar can go based off of like household, but that changes based off of gender, based off of orientation, et cetera, et cetera. So it just helps me understand how it relates to income or health and education, et cetera. So thank you so much.
Of course. Did you have another question? No. Okay.
Okay. Mitch, go ahead.
All right, Doc. All these questions added more questions for me, and not so much questions as statements here at the end. One is that I would not trying to toot everybody's horn that's up here on the dais right now, but this board, in addition to the SALT grant, also initiated a corridor study along the I-80 corridor for the purposes of development, which is exactly what you were talking about, and the why, and it's one of those things that was really needed. So for the foresight of staff to bring that and the board to support that, I'm very appreciative because it's borne out in the data that the doc brought saying this is where we need to study in order to assure that we can have some economic growth within our county that's appropriate, right? Especially in industries like tourism, right? We got to catch all those people passing through, and how do we get them off the road and buying things? The second thing that I think that I heard is that one of the most vital things to all of this is our infrastructure and resources in the county in order to be able to grow. That's kind of the foundation for everything. And this board and I think yeah, you were here for that piece. I wasn't sure if you two had been here for that piece. I know Cassandra wasn't. But when we did the board's goals, right, we were here. And one of the things that we talked about and that was asked for by Supervisor Vasquez was an overarching study of our infrastructure in Solano County. And we've been asking, since I've been here at least, that's 6 years now, for that study to take place. And unless we know what we have no way to know what we can build. We need to complete that study so that we know what power resources are available where, we know what water is available and how, and it has so many different implications when it comes to growth and economic development. We just talked about this yesterday in this room at the LAFCO meeting, because water being a finite resource in our county, as different communities develop and they look to their general plans and they look to their roadmap to the future and how they're going to develop, we have to divvy up that resource amongst 7 cities and a county and all the manufacturers here. We need to have that overarching study so we know what the city of Fairfield's doing, what the city of Rio Vista's doing, what the city of Vallejo's doing into the future, so we know how we can manage that finite resource that is the foundation of economic development in our county. And I guess, so no questions, Doc. I just needed to get that out there so that everybody understands we need that study if we're going to make the Doc's plan work. If we're going to actually grow something in our economy here, we need to know what we're working with, right? All right, I'm good.
Okay. All right, so here are my questions. How damaging were the tariffs?
So far, at least from the research that's emerged, they have not been extremely damaging in terms of changing the trajectory of inflation greatly, but most economists believe that they have at least kept inflation from falling.
I would agree with that one.
It's probably crept it up a little bit. Last estimate I saw was about 0.3% of current inflation is likely tariff driven. But remember, tariffs have gone down from their original heights from April 2, 2025.
They kind of change depending upon who illegally does something with them. Okay, now that I've said that, I have read where in terms of medical that we're going to need by like 2030 something like 400,000 nurses. So the question that I have, because I agree with you, which is why a lot of people want to have a hospital or a clinic or something nearby, because that does generate income when people go to work as well as when they go have lunch somewhere. So the question that I have is, how do we get some money? Because we're not that far away from Solano Community College, who does have a nursing program, and we have 3 places, the main one, let alone the fact that we have the 4-year degree program on Vallejo when it comes to technology, dealing with, are we going to be able to take and create more drugs or whatever it is that we might be creating over there. So the question that I have is, how do we get the state to give us some money so that we can expand out? And is there any way down the road, you've been around long enough to know we used to have LVNs, which is kind of like a preclude before you become an RN. And is there a way to even get that changed enough, which would be a policy decision at the state level, so that we could have at least people go in and help that's not an IA, or AI, sorry, my bad, not an AI kind of thing, because you're going to have people deal with people, and some of us are growing older, not all of us. Don't look at my hair, but so that's what I want to know. What are we going to do to make some changes in Sacramento to say, we understand that we need to have more medical folks, but we need you to help us so that we can bring in not only the professors, but where that you might need to have to help at, like a lot of hospitals have said, we don't have enough nurses to be their mentors. So how do we work on all that to make it happen?
So great set of questions. It's something that in Parallel Life at Sonoma State we are trying to answer as we speak, because it's something we get a lot of students who want to be in healthcare when they come as freshmen.
Right.
And then they end up for multiple reasons. Some of it is because we can only place so many nurses based on clinical placements and some other constraints with respect to the broader competition. So we are also in the midst of trying to figure out pipelines. Now, part of the answer to your question that I'm just using that as preface is you need to talk to the healthcare providers and have them in a partnership with local higher education, and how many do we need trained, when should the training take place in terms of their own hiring cycles, and don't overburden the market, but at the same time recognize that not every nurse that you train, or every LVN or MA or PA, or you name the initial or the acronym, are going to land in Solano County, right? But what you want to be able to do is at least have a pipeline where if somebody wants to be here, the healthcare systems know that engine is humming. That's one of the things we've struggled with, is that we're really good at nursing, but the other parts of healthcare that the region needs, we've struggled with. But we're now in a broader partnership with Santa Rosa Junior College, College of Marin,
Mhm.
and starting to move towards Solano Community College as well to try to figure out, is there a pipeline way that we can put more RNs out there, but also is there some niche we can play in providing the workers that the healthcare systems need regionally. So having that conversation in a similar way that you look at infrastructure, think of healthcare as an infrastructure or as a piece of infrastructure, right? Those inputs and the outputs have to kind of sync up to where there's not a lack of those services because you just haven't got the people. To your point, I don't think you're going to see AI really take over super quickly in healthcare, but it will be a slow-moving drumbeat in that direction. If you need bodies and you can't find them, and you still want to have a certain level of patient care, you might start looking at technology. If the supposition is that a person is a better fit, then you just need to make sure that those
Yeah.
systems are integrated with each other so that the people are moving toward where the jobs are. It's one of the toughest things to do across economic and workforce development is sync those up, but the conversation needs to include K through 12 and higher education alongside of the healthcare systems as partners.
No, and I concur wholeheartedly. I just was curious about, because I'm looking at the fact that it's going to cost us money to
Oh.
put all that together.
Yeah.
No, I hear everything that you're saying, and I concur wholeheartedly. I would love to see summer schools. I would love to see a lot of that going on. But the question that I have is that where am I going to get the funding? And we already heard some folks today talking about what's happening with not having enough funds to take care of our folks. And I serve on the Area Agency on Aging, and I get it. But the bottom line is we're going to have people, especially with HR 1, we have to feed them. We're required by law to take care of them in the hospital. Where's all this money going to come from to take care of that? So I don't have to sit up here with my colleagues and say, we have to RIF people. That's a big worry I go to bed with every night.
Yeah, so if you drive 45 minutes to the east and you want to see the theater on this issue, it's going to go on till at least June 30. So it's not an easy question to answer, unfortunately.
Right.
And this is like the prime issue as the budget for the state of California is being finalized, which is happening as we speak.
Yeah.
So in the short term, you're not going to generate, I don't think, an enormous amount of let's say, parallel funds for programmatic support, short of allowing more programs to take place and maybe having more of a partnership where you're a portion of that, but you're not the driving force from a financial standpoint as the state of California to make those new labor force entrants a function of that money. It's going to be where the healthcare systems might also be a partner in that.
Okay.
The state's got a lot of unfortunate core budget challenges that are on the part of the healthcare system, but won't necessarily be financing new positions.
Now, so I see us doing the best that we can as we kind of limp along. The other thing that I'm also thinking of is when we're dealing with all of this is what manufacturing, or when you talk about construction, what is it that I'm building?
You're going to be building new housing units.
Okay.
And some commercial might be more build to occupy, where you have a specific builder who wants to come in and do something for themselves. That seems to be where the market is going for the time being, but it's somewhat volatile. Housing units, either due to RENA or potentially some opportunities where some developers see are going to be this, slow, consistent drumbeat toward the end of the decade. But that's where the building's going to take place.
Okay, so when we're talking about that, we are looking until like 2030 then. So this is going to be something where we have to say, do we have enough water? Do we have enough this? Do we have enough that? And then just move ourselves through to make sure everybody has a place to live. Okay. I truly always love when you come, and there's a lot on our plate to make all this happen. And thank you for still showing up every year to Solano County.
Thank you for even asking me. I mean, it's a two-way street. But thank you, folks, for your questions. I'm glad that hopefully this helps.
You did. Thank you. Yeah, you did. Thank you. And
Thank you.
I'm assuming we're good. Everybody had their questions and stuff like that. Okay. I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead.
No, then thank you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you. Thank you, Matthew. Yeah, Matthew's eyes were not glazed over like mine. Okay. All right, item number 24.
Receive a presentation on the Community Investment Fund fiscal year 26-27 annual grants to address the top 6 human services needs in the county. Consider approval of a recommendation to allocate up to $365,000 from the CIF one-time investments to 5 agencies for a term July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2027 for annual grants in response to the request for proposals 2026-02 CIF annual grants and delegate authority to the county administrator with the concurrence of county council to execute the resulting contracts.
All right, so staff's going to make a presentation, and I believe somebody created a PowerPoint for us. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. Today we are presenting the fiscal year 26-27 Community Investment Fund annual grant recommendations. These recommendations represent strategic investments in community-based programs that address priority needs identified through the county's Human Services Needs Assessment. Through a competitive process, staff evaluated 32 proposals and is recommending funding for 5 organizations that will deliver both measurable outcomes in food security, behavioral health, family support, and community well-being throughout Solano County. I am Denise Winters, Deputy Director of First 5 Solano, and we have
Diana Moreno, Program Manager, who oversees the CIF on your behalf.
For the members of the public and board members, we'd like to begin with a brief overview of how the Community Investment Fund was developed. In 2019, on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, the County Administrator's Office conducted a comprehensive human needs assessment to identify the greatest human service needs facing Solano County residents. The assessment was also designed to establish a structured process for directing limited county resources towards strategies that would have the greatest impact and to create a framework for measuring results and community outcomes. The Human Needs Assessment ultimately led to the creation of the Community Investment Fund, a durable framework that uses data-driven decision-making to invest approximately $2 million annually in programs that address the county's highest priority needs. In November 2023, the board approved minor modifications to the Community Investment Fund for the fiscal years 2024-25 through 26-27 funding cycle. These changes included aligning investments with other county and community initiatives to avoid duplication of services. Since its inception, the Community Investment Fund has provided a transparent and accountable process for investing county resources while ensuring funded programs demonstrate measurable outcomes and meaningful community impact. Today, we are focusing on the one-time investment component of the Community Investment Fund. As a reminder, the Community Investment Fund utilizes a 3-pronged funding strategy designed to address both immediate and long-term community needs. The first component is the legacy programs, which provide ongoing support to long-standing community programs that continue to demonstrate value and impact. The second component is deep investments, which provide multi-year funding to address some of Solano County's most significant and complex challenges, including homelessness prevention, housing affordability, and mental health. The third component and the focus of today's presentation is one-time investments, also known as the Annual Grants Program. These grants provide flexible funding for targeted short-term projects that address one or more of the county's identified priority human service needs. For fiscal year 26-27, the board allocated $365,000 for one-time investments. Through a competitive request for proposals process, community organizations submitted innovative project designed to address urgent needs in our community while producing measurable outcomes for Solano County residents. The recommendation being presented today represents strategic investments in programs that will improve food security, behavioral health, family stability, and access to critical resources for children, families, and vulnerable populations throughout our county. Here's another representation of the Community Investment Fund. For fiscal year 26-27, the total CIF allocation is approximately $2.16 million, broken down as follows. Annual grants, $365,000, deep investments, $1.5 million, and legacy programs, $270,291. This year's annual grant process focused on short-term projects that address urgent community needs, which I'll detail in the following slides.
Thank you, Denise. To continue, I will be presenting the details of your one-time investment for fiscal year 2026-27. As a reminder, the purpose of the annual grants program is to support short-term projects that address urgent community needs across the county. These grants are open to a wide range of community-based organizations and are designed to support innovative approaches that produce measurable outcomes. In February, the county released a solicitation for a total of $365,000 in available funding. Applicants could apply for up to $75,000 for larger projects or up to $25,000 for smaller projects. Here you can see the top 6 priority areas that these projects needed to address. That solicitation process followed clear requirements in alignment with the county's purchasing and contracting policies, including that proposals had to address at least one of the top 6 priority needs listed in the previous slide. Programs were required to serve Solano County residents. All applicants needed to clearly define a specific task and measurable outcomes. We hosted a mandatory proposals conference, which was attended by 95 individuals representing 75 agencies. We received 32 eligible proposals by the deadline. Each proposal was reviewed through a competitive scoring process conducted by subject matter experts who convene at the end of May to complete the scoring process and select the top proposals. After carefully investigating and evaluating each proposal, I'm excited to share the result of many months of work and collaboration. We are recommending funding for these 5 agencies, totaling $365,000. First, we have here Food Bank of Contra Costa and Solano. We're recommending funding of $75,000 to deliver locally sourced fresh produce at 20 sites countywide and provide more than 480 food distributions annually, serving over 10,000 individuals each month. This investment will help improve food security for families while supporting local agriculture. Next is Planned Parenthood. We're recommending funding of $75,000 to provide coordinated behavioral health services, including crisis counseling, therapy, care coordination, and referrals. The program will serve 50 individuals in crisis, provide 400 therapy sessions, connect 100 patients to supportive services, and reach 1,000 community members through outreach and partnerships. Next is Innovative Health Solutions. We recommend funding of $75,000 to support 25 Black pregnant individuals and families experiencing housing insecurity through housing navigation, basic needs assistance, mental health support, and nutrition education. The program aims to achieve housing stability for all participants and reduce the stress levels for at least 60% of the families. Next is Food is Free Bay Area. We recommend funding of $75,000 to provide food assistance, nutrition education, and connections to community resources. The program will serve 2,500 households through food distribution and reach an additional 400 households through Family Health Hub events. The goal is for at least 80% of participants to report improved food security or increased access to needed resources. And last but not least, we're recommending funding for Rio Vista Care for $75,000 to provide counseling assistance, substance use support, case management, family resource services, and school-based mental health education for underserved youth and adults. The program will serve 50 households and 150 students with a goal of improving mental health, family stability, and access to behavioral health resources for at least 75% of participants.
Before I conclude, I want to just correct the Innovative Health Solution recommended amount was $65,000.
Yes.
Today, we respectfully request the board to consider approval of recommendations to allocate up to $365,000 from the Community Investment Fund one-time investments to the 5 agencies for a term of July 1st, 2026 to June 30th, 2027, and to delegate authority to the county administrator with the concurrence of County Council to execute the resulting contracts. In closing, thank you for your continued commitment to investing in our community through this strategic and impactful funding structure. We're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, any questions up here from anybody? Is there anybody from, hold on. Do we have any cards or anybody online?
Yes, ma'am, I have 2 cards.
Okay.
No one online, but I have 2 cards.
Okay, so we'll hear from the public.
John McKenzie.
Thank you, Chair and Council. I'm John McKenzie. I'm the president for NAMI Solano. NAMI is the longest grassroots mental health organization in the United States. Been established for many, many years and been in Solano County since 1985. So we represent 41 plus years of involvement in Solano County. And we were one of the applicants for the $75,000. As a result of Prop 1 and the transition between MHSA to BHSA, we've lost all of our funding. So even though we serve 1,000 people annually in Solano County, and we are traditionally the only public agency that has free services for outreach, education, for all of these aspects, we are on the verge of being forced to close because we are a completely, again, nonprofit agency. We conduct fundraisers throughout the year, and we support a lot of people. So for those that have been here from the beginning of the meeting today, you saw that our new executive director, Iman, was part of our gun violence project. We have created, at the request of either the County Mental Health Department, the Board of Supervisors, the Mental Health Advisory Board, or many agencies, we have created individualized programming to support the people of Solano County. And we are now faced with having 0 funding to be able to continue these services. I don't disparage any of the agencies that received funding in this grant. However, I will call to light some of the funds that they have already. For example, the Innovative group has $1 million. Planned Parenthood in Northern California has a budget of $140 million. Yet a grassroots agency that is dedicated solely to Solano County, we have no budget, $0. So everything is fundraising that we can get from people, from donations, from our NAMI walk. We were able to raise $25,000 this year. Within the next few months, this agency, NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, will be forced to close. So all of the services and the people that receive our services currently will go without. A lot of the agencies, as you saw, there's a lot of cross-pollination. There's a lot of duplication. And a lot of the services that are provided are dependent and are the responsibility of the Solano County Mental Health Department. So whereas there's a lot of cross-pollination, there's also a lot of gaps in the system. We have a young man on Friday that I was in court representing, who was a Solano County resident that spent 2 years in Napa State Hospital. He was released on the day, 5:00 p.m., released
Airtime.
with no services available, and we were the only agency that was present to represent him and his family. Nobody from the county was there, nobody from diversion, nobody from mental health. So there are a lot of gaps in the system that I don't think that these 5 agencies will necessarily fill. So I ask that if there are additional funds available, or if there's alternative considerations, that NAMI Solano be considered.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to just go through the rest of the public, and then I can come back to you.
Deborah DeMello? Did I pronounce that right? You did great. Wonderful.
Madam Chair, Board of Supervisors, my name is Deb DeMello. I'm the current outgoing Executive Director for NAMI Solano County. I, like John, do not disparage any of the 32 applicants for this small pot of money, frankly, in their efforts to try and get the support that they desperately need. Many of us have been put in this terrible position that John and many have highlighted. And I want to state that I'm laying myself off as a result, and gratefully I have been able to turn over the reins to a very capable, passionate young woman who serves this county with her personal story that you all heard. It is my frustration, I'm going to cry even though she didn't, it's my frustration and anger that we are put in this position to have to, I can't retire as a mom. I have 2 adult sons with mental illness. One is being released as I'm sitting here. He just got released in the last 10 minutes. And I'm trying to stabilize my own sons in this county where there's few services and few things that are providing them the support that they need. The #1 priority in this county is mental health, yet they were a footnote in many of the items of the organizations that were chosen. They do have prudent reserve. They do have $1 million in their bank accounts to be able to continue to serve this community, but yet our organization was overlooked and dismissed as a possible candidate to bridge this crisis that we're in for the small amount that we were going to try to keep surviving with. NAMI Solano County has as John shared, has served this community for more than 40 years. And we'll find by hell or high water, find a way to serve. But if anyone knows of anyone, of any funds, of any ways in which we can serve our community for their mental health needs, it is desperate. And HR 1 is going to create a desperate situation in this county that we are not prepared for. I did the SIM mapping with many of the organizations in this county, and we haven't filled the gaps that already exist. And we are going to find our crisis beyond our ability to handle it. My sons have the risk of losing their benefits and losing their health and losing their minds, literally, and losing their lives. We're going to have a much worse situation in a very short time if we don't start and continue to invest in mental health. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody else? Nobody? Anybody else? All right. Supervisor Mashburn?
My first question would be the first 5, and I think that it is a legitimate issue that was brought up of the organizations that we're talking about funding. There are several there that have literally, if not one, that has hundreds of millions of dollars of funding. And I have this problem not just with this particular award and grant process that we have here. We do this across the county, the state does it as well, where these organizations that have different funding sources, they have the ability to have grant writers. They have the ability to have people who coordinate the effort and to apply resources from other areas to augment the grant monies that we have. In the meantime, some of our smaller nonprofits are falling to the side, and we're losing them. They're going away. The people who stand in the gap are going away. Were there any points given? Was there any consideration made to the fact that some of those agencies have exterior funding, have alternate monies, that they're not going to go away? Was there any points given to the people who are going to collapse if they don't get the funding? Was there any methodology for that in the process?
Your question, Denise?
Am I allowed to discuss the points and?
You can
and how
discuss
they
the
were given?
evaluation criteria.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect, yes. I don't know, we had three people review the proposals, each of them subject matter experts in different arenas. And of that, they make the determinations on rating each. There is not a question in there on other sources of funding, but the financials are also submitted,
So,
if that makes sense.
so they had a chance to view that. Now, without telling me who, I don't want to know who
Yeah,
the
no,
evaluators
no.
were, right? I'm
Correct.
sure you
I will
wouldn't
not release that
tell me that
information.
information. But were any of them from a small local CBO that has no exterior funding? I mean, were they any of our little folks, or were they national experts who have 3 PhDs who
can't
work
answer
for a multi-million-dollar organization?
So the answer is yes. In a prior position, an individual was from a nonprofit CBO, a nonprofit, in a prior position of theirs.
A set of nonprofits, but I'm talking specifically about a small, local, CBO that has those vulnerabilities and has experienced that. There's people who work for a nonprofit like the Salvation Army that has millions and millions of dollars who could be considered a nonprofit and who could have sat on that panel. Totally different outlook and different biases than necessarily than a CBO.
We are talking about a nonprofit.
A small local
A
nonprofit.
small, very local nonprofit, yes.
Okay, all right, now I'll quit picking on you, now I'm gonna pick on staff a little bit. And the CAO. 2 years ago, we set up a fund within this county, and we set aside $250,000 for just such a case as this, when an organization, which is a nonprofit, is about to tank, and we need to help support them because of the impacts to the community. I can't recall without my 1,200-page budget book in front of me if that $250,000 exists. I don't know if you can tell me that without that book in front of you, but is that money still there? And if it is, what is the probability of helping NAMI?
Yeah, so I can tell you, yes, the $250,000 that we had set aside, the board had directed to set aside for emergency services is there and available. There is a process which First Five through our Community Investment Fund manages for those emergency needs. And so there's an application process, and we can put NAMI in touch with that process. They'll submit an application, it'll get reviewed, and we'll move through our internal process to determine if funding can be awarded through that source of funds.
Thank you. There you go. All right? Okay.
And
That's
we'll
the best
be
I can
back.
do for right now. Yeah.
Then we'll be back with that, yes.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I would assume then included in that motion is to have happen what just transpired with the CAO, right?
That we can't vote on that. That's not part of the agenda. But I would, they're gonna go.
They're gonna do what they're gonna do.
They're gonna do what they're gonna do.
Got it, okay.
I'm gonna move the staff recommendation
Mission.
for these items.
Okay.
For the 6 agencies to get.
All right. It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there anybody else who has a question?
One moment, ma'am, we are grabbing.
Oh, okay.
A moment, please.
Okay, that's fine, thank you. It happens. All right.
So ordered by a vote of 4-0.
All right, so we're on item number 23. No, I read it wrong, sorry, 25 from the library. Do I have any motions? Or let me phrase it better, I said that wrong. Is there any other public comment or anything on this one yet?
Okay, I'm going to read the title first. and
Oh,
then
that's
we'll go
always
from there.
helpful to read the title. I just read
receive a-
library, that sounded good.
Receive a presentation from the Library Department on its proposed website redesign and catalog overlay vendor. And in answer to your question, at this time, I have no callers and I have no cards on this item.
Oh, that's excellent. Okay, staff, welcome.
Thank you.
Is this the first time for both of you?
Yes. For me.
Oh, good, let's see how much fun we can have. No, I'm just teasing. Go ahead and start.
Okay. Good morning, board. Good morning, Chair Brown. My name is Megan Wong, and I'm the Assistant Director at the Library Department, and this is my colleague.
And I'm Melissa Padaka, and I'm the Deputy Director of Community Services.
We are here to talk to you today about the library's proposed website redesign and catalog overlay using a product called BiblioCommons. But first, for the benefit of the public, I want to start from the beginning. Oh. Answering the question, what is a library catalog?
I know.
Some of you who grew up going to libraries like I did, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, will remember these old pieces of furniture here with fondness. You would walk up to them and pull out a long wooden card drawer for an author or a subject or a title and thumb through each one for the card you wanted. And heaven help you if you dropped that drawer on the ground. This piece of furniture was called a card catalog. Nowadays, though, this wooden card catalog has been converted into a database that is called an online catalog. When library users come to our library website, yes, they want to see the online version of that long wooden card drawer, but they also want to know some other very important information that they will find on our website. Basic information like hours and locations, contact information like our phone number. They also want to access services like the library's digital streaming services and our ebooks. They want to find events and programs or discover what's happening in general at the library. On the other side of things, we have our online catalog, which is its core function is to search for an item in the library. If an item is not in, you can place a hold on it and have it delivered to your home library. The catalog is also used for logging into your library account and seeing when your items are due and renewing them if they are due soon. And of course, the library catalog can be used for browsing books and for research. To a library user, the website and the catalog are interchangeable, but to a librarian, they are completely different. The vendor you will be looking at today, BiblioCommons, seamlessly blends these two things together, giving the library user a unified experience between the two, so that the user never knows that they are moving between the website and the catalog, because honestly, they shouldn't need to know.
Okay, and I'm going to talk about our website. So how did we get here? So our current website was always meant to be temporary.
Excuse me, ma'am. Will you pull the microphone just a little bit closer
of
to you
course.
so that we can hear you?
Is that better?
That's better, yes. Thank you.
Before 2020, our old website was becoming difficult to maintain. We needed a quick replacement, so we launched our current website in 2020. It served us well during COVID and beyond, but it was always intended to be temporary. Since then, community expectations for online services have continued to grow. As this timeline shows, we're now ready to move to a long-term solution that's designed specifically for public libraries. Okay. So what we're looking at is a screenshot of Chicago Public Library, and they use the website platform BiblioWeb. And one thing what we really like about this homepage is that it's clean and easy to use. Can you hear me okay? Okay. You'll notice that the search box is right at the top, along with quick access to account information. The navigation and browse options help patrons quickly find what they need without having to search through multiple pages. And you'll also see featured collections and staff recommendations that help highlight library resources available to the community. Overall, BiblioWeb creates a more organized, user-friendly experience for both patrons and staff. And as you can see on the screen there, we have, we call them book carousels. And so what's really lovely is that when you visit a website, we can feature different collections and it just scrolls through. It's like browsing your bookshelf, except online. Okay. Another example is, this is a screenshot of San Mateo County's homepage, which also implements BiblioWeb. Here you can see the book carousels, featured collections, and service areas displayed right on the homepage. The homepage doesn't just help people find information, it also helps showcase what the library has to offer. These features help connect patrons with books, programs, and services that might otherwise be overlooked. BiblioWeb also includes accessibility and language translation features that help make the website more welcoming and easier to use for some members of our community. So what's really great about this is that on the upper left-hand corner, there's a pull-down menu, and there's the ability to translate the page into different languages, Spanish, Tagalog, Chinese, which we don't currently have. Overall, it helps create an online experience that is easier to use, more accessible, and better connected to library services. And with that, I'll turn it over to Megan, who will talk more about the catalog and discovery experience.
So switching gears back to the library catalog, what we've learned is, no surprise, library users have come to expect a Google-like search experience. When they look up a book, they want the ebook and the audiobook formats all in one search result. So they want a powerful search engine, and they want all of the formats in one search result. They want the ability to easily refine or narrow their search results so that the information they see is more relevant and useful. They want to mark books and they want to easily add them to their reading lists. They want to find new things to read that they like, and they want to serendipitously discover things. So they want to find things that they don't know that they will like. And like I said before, they want to easily switch back and forth between the website and the catalog seamlessly, and they want a unified experience between the two. Can you switch? Here is an example of a search for Diary of a Wimpy Kid, a notoriously difficult search. And this is, I'm searching here for Diary of a Wimpy Kid 3. This is a different library's catalog since we don't yet have BiblioCommons. And you can see that the search engine knows to display the most relevant information at the top, which is the third Wimpy Kid book, The Last Straw. Not only is the search engine powerful, it is also very intuitive. It's easy to see that my next step here is to place a hold since all copies are in use. You can see that in the red writing down there. I don't know if you can see that, but down at the bottom there it says all copies in use in red. As a side note, those libraries who have moved to BiblioCommons have seen big improvements. MarinNet Library System, our friends to the west, have seen a 20% increase in users finding and requesting materials just 1 month after adopting BiblioCommons. I talked earlier about how library users like to easily refine their search. The facets here on the left-hand side, in the column on the left, allow for further refining. If I want the book right now, I would click on the box that says, you can't really see it, but it's the third one down that has the red box on it that says borrow and take home. I can also refine my search to only Chinese or Spanish books, or only large print books if I am vision impaired. I could also flag this item as something I wanted to read later and put it in my for later reading list. And moving on to a different item, here is an example of all the formats being in one search result, which I mentioned earlier. And you can easily see what's available now and which copies are in use and need to be placed on hold. Next slide. Opening up that book record, I get a short synopsis, and just like on Amazon, I can see that this book is highly rated and with quite a few reviews. I believe there are upwards of 1,700 reviews for this book alone. So I might want to read this book. Move on. Scrolling down further in that item record, I can start interacting with other people who have read and reviewed this book. I can also add my own review. Just to note, once you enter the BiblioCommons universe, you are seeing reviews from people across the nation and even internationally. BiblioCommons is a Canadian company, so a lot of libraries in Canada and even some in New Zealand. So once we come online, all of these reviews would be baked in, just like in Amazon. Scrolling down even further, I see staff from this library who have created book lists featuring this book. And this is really where the magic of BiblioCommons comes into play, where the seamlessness we talked about earlier is clearly visible. A staff person can create a list on the website, which is what Melissa was talking about earlier, and that is now here in the catalog search result. And finally, at the bottom of the record, I can see where the community members have created their own book lists featuring this book. And again, hundreds of libraries all around the world create this BiblioCommons community and come together with a shared love language of literature and reading. And so for our final slide, we have the cost of the product. On the left-hand side is the cost of the website, and on the right-hand side is the cost of the catalog. The annual subscription fee for the website is $63,669, with an implementation fee of $23,728. It's a 3-year contract for a year one total of $87,397 for the website side of things. For the catalog side of things, we have an annual subscription fee of $54,416 with an implementation fee of $19,520, 3-year contract for a year one total of $73,936. We are not asking the board for anything today. This money is already in our requested budget. That is all we have for you today. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
If I may.
You're the boss.
Yeah. Does it get bigger? I'm squinting looking at your format. Does any of that, if I come into your library, will that get bigger for me? Can I make it bigger to read?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
This is the beauty of BiblioWeb. It's very accessible. So, yes, you can.
Oh, I thought you meant our presentation.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, no, I'm sorry.
Yes. Yes.
I'm assuming you copied it off of. Yeah, you
these are
printed, I should say.
screenshots. Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking at it going, I'm really squinting here. Okay. And no, I love it, and I think that's good. And thank you for coming without having to give you money. Anyway.
I just wanted to say thank you. It's wonderful. It is actually very much an Amazon-like or Barnes & Noble-like experience there. The only difference between that and the other is that yours is free, right? I also like the part where you talk about some of the events and some of the things that you do at the library, but just as a parent whose children use that library for years and years and years, I know the library is all about books, but I know that's not all you guys do anymore. You do so much more. I think that needs more prominence, right? Yes. In the display. When it first comes up, there needs to be those events. There needs to be those other things that the library does for the community, very in your face for everybody to be able to see, so they know. Anyway, that's my 2 cents, and I like the free part.
Yeah. We're excited about this product. Like you say, the library has a lot to offer, and with this, we'll be able to feature our different collections, our services, our programs. So,
And our e-services, which have grown exponentially, especially since COVID.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
Thank you for making it accessible, easy to access. That's really important, and especially as we see this trend of things, what we just heard earlier from Dr. Eiler, may see an increase of usage of the library, right? So just having, I did not know that it didn't have different translations. So I'm glad that we will have the new translation. So thank you for bringing this presentation before us. I'm excited for what we'll get to provide our community. So thank you, ladies.
Thank you. So I want to thank you guys for always being at every vendor place I go to. And I saw you guys at Pistis St. Ion, and somebody loved me enough to give me a button to add that talks about libraries. So anyway, so thank you. I got a gift. So that was good. But no, thank you for giving up your weekend to always be there. And there were a lot of kids around you signing up to get your, I'm assuming you have to have a library card to still use this.
To place things on hold,
Yeah.
to have an account, yes.
Yeah, okay, just want to make sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So
To browse and to look for what's in the catalog, no, you can use it without a library card. But if you want to check out a book or check out an ebook, actually you can, there are some things that you can do without a library card.
Yeah. But just to go along with what Supervisor Mashburn's talking about, you have places where little kids can come with their parents if they have time in the morning or on a weekend and read to them. You guys are always doing stuff, and it's all the different libraries in Solano County, which are county libraries. It's just not just one. You don't have to live next door to it. You can go anywhere, and that's what I love, that it does not matter that you're not hampered because of transportation. You can get it wherever you need to. So that's my 2 cents worth. Anybody else? So did we harass you enough? I just want to make sure that I still haven't lost that yet. Okay.
We survived. Thank you.
You guys did great. Thank you very much for
you.
bringing it forward. Okay, to the clerk of the board, I believe we're on item 26.
Receive a presentation from the Department of Resource Management on placing a potential revenue measure on the November 2026 general election ballot to modernize and expand Solano County's commercial energy production and resource extraction business license tax structure. Direct staff to return to the board on June 23rd, 2026 to initiate the ballot process. Direct staff to prepare the necessary resolution for amendments to Solano County Code, Chapter 11, Article 12.
Okay, who gets to talk first?
And it is almost noon, so I'm going to say good afternoon, board.
Go ahead, Misty.
Thank you, Misty Culp-Reiters, Resource Management Assistant Director. I'm here with JT Lee, an Associate Planner, and we're going to present the item today. And so I'm going to give a little bit of, very brief. So the item before you today is intended as a discussion. And it's really regarding the potential updates to the county's existing business license tax structure as it relates to commercial wind production and resources extraction in the unincorporated area. So the county's commercial wind turbine tax was adopted in 1994 and has remained unchanged for over 30 years. Staff has been evaluating options to modernize that tax, including whether to adjust the existing rate for inflation and whether to consider expanding the tax structure to other commercial energy resource or sectors. So today's presentation is intended to provide a background information and explain potential options available to the board and receive direction on whether the staff should continue developing potential ballot measure for consideration later this month. So I will hand it over to JT to go through a presentation. Thank you.
Ready? Thanks, Misty, for that overview. So I'll just jump right in based on that overview Misty gave. So what is the business license tax? Chapter 11 of the County Code, Section 161, the tax is a general tax for general government purposes. The business license tax includes a few entities, including solid waste disposal facilities, well drilling mud disposal facilities, and marijuana businesses. It also includes, as we'll go into detail today, on commercial energy produced by commercial wind turbines. This applies again to businesses located in unincorporated county outside of city limits. The origin of this tax is passed in 1994 by the Solano Board of Supervisors at that time. It was passed at a rate of, I'm gonna get this, 3/100th of a cent per kilowatt hour with no CPI adjustment at that time. So that tax was the same rate. Currently, we collect around $56,000 of tax from commercial wind turbines a year. Just for an illustrative point, if this tax had included a inflation escalator tied to the consumer price index, it would generate approximately $124,000 for the last fiscal year. Over the last 5 fiscal years, about $317,000 of revenue could have been collected if it was tied to an escalator. So currently there's 2 companies located in Solano County that are operating the wind turbines. You can see on the left the different wind projects and the amount of turbines associated with each project and the tax breakdown based on the last fiscal year. In bold are 4 different projects that are operated by SMUD. Those SMUD wind turbine projects are not taxed due to a court case, SMUD v. Solano County, or County of Solano. For the fiscal year, last fiscal year, the average turbine tax was $134. The proposed tax, if increased to 7/100th of a cent per kilowatt hour, would tie very closely to inflation and be approximately an average of $313 per turbine. Additionally, a proposed tax would include a CPI adjustment. So additionally, there's other entities that could be subject to a business license tax. As you know, this board adopted regulations for battery energy storage systems that allow them in very specific areas in the unincorporated county. If they were taxed, a front-of-the-meter tax would be the most appropriate, or a $1 tax per nameplate capacity for these facilities to be charged monthly. For example, if there's a 1,200 megawatt hour site located in the unincorporated, it would generate around $14,000 a year in additional new revenue. Additionally, there's natural gas extraction facilities in the unincorporated county. If there was a tax of 25 cents per 1,000 cubic feet of natural gas extracted, it would generate about $150,000 in additional revenue for the county. This was based on recent measurements in the last year. Finally, there is the potential to add commercial solar as a tax. Solano County currently doesn't have a commercial solar tax. PG&E and other purveyors that may operate would not be subject to this tax. And commercial solar is allowed currently in unincorporated Solano, specifically in the manufacturing commercial zones. There isn't a moratorium against commercial solar. As we can see on the screen, there are the locations of the wind turbines and the natural gas wells. Most of the facilities are located near Rio Vista. Again, there's 421 commercial turbines that would be subject to this tax and 63 active gas wells. Most of the wind turbine facilities are located south of 12, and the gas facilities are just outside of Rio Vista and a bit north of Highway 12. So if a commercial wind turbine inflation adjustment measure was included and a natural gas well extraction tax, that would generate somewhere in the range of $225,000 in brand new revenue for the county. This tax, again, would be dependent on the generation of these sites. So if it's a really windy year, there could be some additional revenue associated, but if it's not a windy year, a little bit of a drop. So if this was a ballot measure, if a ballot measure was requested, the board would have no later than August 4th, the August 4th meeting, to place a measure on the 2026 ballot. This is due to the action requiring 88 days before the election. So staff has the following recommendation of receiving an overview of a potential tax today and discuss it, and also provide direction to staff. Then, if directed to return on June 23rd, there'd be a resolution requesting to have the measure placed on a ballot. The approximate cost to place on this upcoming November ballot would be around $140,000. And then all Solano residents would vote on this measure. It's not just the residents and the unincorporated, it'd be countywide. If there is a desire for a general tax, it would be a 50+1 majority vote. The general tax would be deposited in the general fund. If there's a desire for a specific source or a specific project associated with the funding, it would require a 2/3 majority vote. I also wanted to note the potential local ballot measures. These are based on staff research on seeing what was available. It's not a guarantee that these will all be put on the ballot. Vacaville and Fairfield are looking at sales tax increases. The city of Benicia has been discussing a business license tax increase as well. Additionally, they are discussing a limited charter city status to implement a real property transfer tax. Finally, City of Vallejo has discussed a business license tax and a transfer tax as well, and the school district has considered a bond. Again, I want to reiterate, these are just potentials that different jurisdictions are discussing in our county, and other districts, city councils, boards, they can look to add something else before those 88 days are required. So it could change between now and early August. So for a proposal, if the business license tax is changed, going through the Prop 218 process requires that vote. The two portions of this proposal would include an increase on the current commercial wind turbine tax to adjust for 30 years of inflationary measures and a future escalator to ensure that the board wouldn't have to place this on the ballot every time. It would adjust automatically. This would provide in the range of around $70,000 in new revenue. The second portion would be adding a new tax for the BESS facilities, commercial solar, and natural gas wells. It would provide, when combined with the commercial turbines, around $225,000 in new revenue. On the screen, you can see the staff recommendations. The first was to receive this presentation that I'm currently giving. The second would be to direct staff to return to the board on June 23rd with a proposed resolution to support placing a measure on the 2026 general election ballot and to amend the business license tax amount. And third would be to direct staff to prepare those necessary amendments. For your consideration as well, staff did provide alternative actions that can be taken. The first being only adjusting the existing commercial wind turbine tax, and it would a ballot measure would focus just on that as alone. The second alternative would to have staff further evaluate the potential of separating out the ballot measures to say one item on one and multiple on other, or some mix of the two. The third alternative would be no new tax measures for this item. And that will conclude the presentation. So go back to the.
Okay, so I'm going to go to Supervisor Mashburn, and he will be your first one of the morning. Ooh.
Afternoon, I think now, as Misty noted.
That's true. Good
It is afternoon. So first, I got to ask, because I can't see from this distance, is that a Bucky pen?
It is.
All right. Whoop, whoop. Best
Whoop,
truck
whoop.
stop. Right
Just
there,
went
Bucky.
to it
I
2
love
weeks
it.
ago. So
Thanks. All right. So enough of that silliness
Yeah.
now. So you have heard me, well, maybe you haven't, but others out here have heard me innumerable times talk about those entities that come to our county and pillage our resources. And for me, the power companies are one of those, right? When we talk about wind, when we talk about solar, SMUD, for example, all those turbines out there that we aren't allowed to tax that supply electricity for the Sacramento region, and our residents realize no benefit. At a time when we have programs and we have citizens who are incredibly impacted, when we talk about that low to middle income group that are taxed into oblivion, when we talk about the programs for mental health, all of those issues that we have that revolve around finance that we don't have, the ability to create a tax that does not impact those families and those communities, that does impact those entities that are coming to our county to pillage our county's resources for the betterment of their residents, I'm totally in support of that. My question is there's two pieces to it. The first is there a way to recoup more than just that CPI, right? Do we have to say it's just CPI? Or can we say, hey, let's make it 5%, right? Because, you know, PG&E doesn't have a problem going back to the state once every 3 months and raising our rates 15%. They're a for-profit company, right? Making money off of our back. I'd like to cut into their stock share a little bit to the benefit of our residents. So if there's a possibility that instead of it just being the CPI, and we have the ability, we're going to spend $140,000, how much? That's half a year's revenue, according to what you just showed me. It's going to take 6 months for us just to recoup what it costs to have the election to initiate the tax. I would like to recoup a little bit more, right? And I'd like to know what that looks like. I don't want to slow this process down because I know you don't have time, but if there's a way in that 88 days to adjust that amount and take a bigger bite, I would not necessarily object to that. My second question is, so SMUD sued us and they get an exemption for, and this is going to make some people's feathers get ruffled. They got an exemption for their windmills. We can't tax their windmills, but their windmills now aren't sitting on their property. Their windmills are sitting on somebody else's property, and I'm wondering if via the property tax, there's a way for us to recoup that money for those windmills sitting there. You following me?
I'm following. I don't think I can answer second.
You can't. You don't have to answer that right now. But somebody out there in staff land, yeah, I'm looking for an answer to that question at some point, right? Because you know, SMUD got an exemption, but the people that leasing the land to them, they didn't. And if SMUD's making a bunch of money, and the property owners are making a bunch of money, and the citizens of Solano County are getting the shaft, then we need to fix that. I also don't have any objection to, as long as we're talking about all the entities here, the solar piece or the BESS plant piece, because we need to have those policies. We sat here earlier and talked about having policies in place prior to, so that when companies want to come here, when industry wants to come here, they know ahead of time what it's going to cost. We need to let them know, and we need to make sure that that tax is in place, and it needs to be an appropriate tax at an appropriate level to be able to sustain services and to sustain and to grow county services related to that. So I'm fully in support. I just want to know how we can get more, right? Y'all brought this modest amount here. I don't want modest, right? I want something that's more indicative of our residents being supported. All right? Thank you. And with that, if there ain't any more questions, oh, there are. Okay, I was going to say, I'll make the motion that we accept staff's recommendation on this. But
yeah, not a problem. All right. I'm just loving the energy for the afternoon. I just think it's great. Supervisor Williams, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Brown. Okay, so my question is, where's the data centers in this? Why we can't put that in there too? I mean, because data centers, they're looking to come our way. We need to be prepared if data centers come, right? They need to know this is how much it's going to cost. So I don't see that. I would like to make the recommendation that they're added in there too. And I'm just going to say this, coming from a municipality to county and to see that this is an ongoing theme of no CPIs, no inflators. I'm like, what is happening here? So that was, make sure how much we can get, we should get it. But I did have a question in reference to the case, and this would go over to Carrie. I see that when SMUD versus County of Solano, it went to the appellate court. And was there any, and it's hard to see because I'm looking this up at Justia, but can we appeal that?
No, unfortunately, it's too late to appeal that case. That's an older case now. We would be looking at legislation to go around the result of that case. But this sort of ties back to Supervisor Mashburn's question about it. I'll look at it more carefully, but I think the answer is going to be no with regards to SMUD's business being on privately owned property because the tax is on a business. It's not on the land. And the court's decision was that SMUD is not a business for the purposes of a business license tax, and that's why the court held that we couldn't apply this tax to them. So it's not who owns the land, it's whose business it is.
So say that again. The
Yeah.
court ruled that they're not a business? Did I
Yeah,
hear that
because
right?
they are whatever kind of entity they are. They're not a private
Publicly
commercial
UC.
business.
Oh,
Yeah.
hey, once again, I wonder about the court system. Okay.
Okay, but
That blew
just-
me away. Sorry, I just.
No, that's fine,
No,
that's
keep going,
fine.
Keep going.
So with that being said, in 97, so, but they can give them, when you're a corporation, they also giving the make them like a person, right? Because they can do PACs and they can do all these other things. So what would legislation look like to get around that?
It would redefine what we consider a business for purposes of applying business license tax. It would have to specifically address the status of that organization and whether they're subject to business license tax. I'm not saying I don't know what the pathway for that looks like, what the success would be.
Well, they will fight that.
Yeah, they would fight that.
Oh,
but
100%.
We're too late to appeal the court decision.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I'm like, wait a minute, it just went to the appellate. It could go to Supreme, the state Supreme Court. Okay, we didn't do that. All right, well, I thought I better ask about that. Well, so, and then this is just me thinking, but they have, if they're not considered a business, why then do they have not stakeholders, but shareholders?
SMUD doesn't. PG&E.
Does SMUD, there's just PG&E,
Yeah, SMUD
but
is the
SMUD
board, they're like
doesn't?
us.
Oh, okay. I don't know anything about SMUD. All right, okay. I just was checking. I'm like, wait a minute, if they have okay, well then that's the end. I'm going hoarse as we continue to talk. Thank you.
Anything, Cassandra? Oh. Okay, so we got an agreement on this side. The question that I have, to go back to the data centers, since they're very water intensive, I would think whatever tax we place would also be on the water that they're going to be using. Not just I would assume, I don't know, that's what when you look at what's happening in Virginia, they use a lot of water. So I would think that whatever we come up with, it needs to be, you're going to have a tax on water and you're going to have to clean up that water that you're using. I'm just throwing it out because since we're having a discussion in this lovely afternoon.
Yeah, and just kind of a thought about the water, and specifically, I was thinking about, depending on where they are, if they are in the Groundwater Sustainability Agency, and then you would have to see, because that is currently under a tax. Let's just say it's not a tax, it's a fee associated with that. So that depends. And so I was just kind of milling it around, but that's something that we can definitely consider.
Okay, so collectively, we can make policy up here together. I love it. It's really good. Okay, anybody else with the recommendation?
So-
We do have a motion, but go ahead.
I wanted to amend my motion to include data centers.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Tax it all.
Are we
Give
good?
nothing back.
Ma'am, I
Okay.
have a card for public comment.
Oh, we do?
We do.
What's,
Tax
oh, I'm
watch again.
sorry, duh. Come on up.
Oh, into this.
Yes, sir.
Tax watch again.
Madam Chair and Supervisor, today I'm here as Central Solano Taxpayers Group. As the president of the group, I strongly oppose any new taxes. Although this appears to be a corporate tax increase, every city, except for my favorite right now, Suisun, does not have one. Not that they didn't have one last cycle. And I feared that we were all going to be looking at tax increases because we're just at that level. Even the ones on commercial or businesses, they seem to have the trickle-down effects, and they get passed down in rate increases to the citizens. They don't absorb them. They pass them down or pass them back through. That's our concern. We'd be more than happy to, as our tax watchers, to sit with you. We rarely go along with them. We often oppose them. But a lot of times, when they're necessary, we do take a neutral position on those things. More than welcome to sit. We're more likely to be neutral in those cases where they're very specific in nature. We don't like the fact that they collect funds and they go to things that could be offset with cuts or trimming down the budget. All of the cities are at that point where they've trimmed most of the fat that they can trim. So we understand that. And unlike my predecessors in this group, I tend to be a lot more reasonable because I'm the one up here asking you guys for some of those funds that come for those general things. So I understand that. I also moved to that area where a lot of these things are being proposed, growth and big projects, you know, like data centers, like energy, where those windmills are. I agree then, you know. But I also see those things that are happening. We have the worst electricity source out there. We have power in brownouts. We have horrible internet. If someone was going to put a data center out there, that'd be the worst place in Solano County to start, right? We'd be looking for some place that had more stable things. So again, on its face, we oppose. We'd love to learn more about your ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anybody else on the phone or coming through? Okay. All right, so it's been properly moved and seconded, so let's vote. Second. Oh, I thought you already did that. Okay. He amended his. Oh, that's right, he amended, yes, okay.
So ordered by a vote of 4-0.
Yay.
Yay.
Go Bucky.
Okay. All right. All right, to the clerk of the board, it looks like we're on item 27. Are there any comments from anybody yet, or can we just move through and read it?
Let's get it.
We'll go ahead and read the title first.
Sounds good.
Receive a presentation from the Department of Treasurer, Tax Collector, County Clerk regarding a potential revenue measure on the November 2026 general election ballot to increase Solano County's transient occupancy tax, TOT rate from 5% to 12%. Direct staff to return to the board on June 23rd, 2026 to initiate the ballot process and direct staff to prepare the necessary resolution for amendments to Solano County Code Chapter 11, Article 2. We do not have anybody on the line, and Mr. Joyce had submitted a card for 26 and 27, but he has left, so I believe he felt his comments.
Okay. You know what? You're just not here. All right, so go ahead with the presentation.
All right. Good afternoon, Chair Brown and members of the board. My name is Denise Dix. I'm the Assistant Treasurer, Tax Collector, County Clerk. Today, the department is presenting information regarding a potential increase to the county's transient occupancy tax, or TOT. This presentation will provide an overview of the county's existing TOT structure, recent collection trends, comparisons with neighboring jurisdictions, and a potential ballot that would increase the rate from 5% to 12%. At the conclusion of this presentation, staff requests the board's direction on whether to proceed with preparing a ballot measure for the November 2026 general election. So TOT was established by Solano County in 1964, and it is authorized under the R&T Code 7280. The tax is imposed on guests who occupy lodging accommodations for 30 days or less. It applies to hotels, motels, vacation rentals, similar lodging facilities located in the unincorporated area of Solano County. The current tax rate is 5%, and that is on the taxable receipts. It is important to note that the county only administers the TOT in unincorporated areas. Incorporated areas establish and collect their own TOT rates with their respective jurisdictions. Revenue generated from this tax is deposited into the county's general fund and may be used for lawful governmental purposes. Currently, a significant portion of the admin cost associated with TOT compliance and enforcement are supported by general fund resources. Listed above are the last 4 fiscal years, and as you can see, it decreased from 21-22 from 138,000 to approximately 52,000 in 24-25. The declining revenue trend highlights the limited revenue currently generated at the existing 5% rate. As we look ahead, we anticipate growth in the unincorporated area, and I believe it was mentioned some growth in a previous presentation. So TOT revenue is generated from lodging facilities located within the county's unincorporated areas. We have identified 12 lodging properties that are currently subject to the county's TOT requirements. Additional revenue is collected through online sources like Airbnb, HomeAway, Gather Vacations. These platforms, they only give us the aggregate of the taxes. They do not break it down on what properties they are collecting for. So sometimes that can be challenging for us to get the exact number of the locations. Believe it was SB 345, but don't quote me on that. I believe that is the one that allowed counties to prepare an ordinance to require these companies to give us that information. So you'll be seeing me again to come back with that. Anyway, the lodging operators are required to remit their TOT quarterly. So as you can see, there are some comparisons we've done between the cities in our county and then the surrounding counties. Solano County rate is 5%, so is Suisun's, but then we have as high as 14% in Vallejo. Sacramento, 12%, San Francisco, 14%, and Napa at 13%. That is why we suggested the 12% to kind of put us right in the middle of all of that. The comparison demonstrates that the proposed rate would not be unusual or out of alignment with the comparable jurisdictions. Proposition 218, any increase to TOT must be approved by the voters. Staff is evaluating a proposal to increase from 5 to 12%, and based on that, it would give us about 58,000 more in additional revenue a year. It is a general tax, so all revenue would be deposited into the county's general fund and can be used to support essential county services and operations. The approval of the measure would require a simple majority vote, so that 50+1. And should the board choose to move forward, the measure would be presented to voters on the November 2026 general election. So based on the information I presented, we recommend that the board first receive the presentation, which you have, and second, direct the staff to return on June 23rd with a resolution placing the measure on the November 2026 ballot, and direct the staff to prepare necessary amendments to Solano County Code Chapter 11, Article 2. There's a couple alternatives. You could tell me to go back and do additional analysis, or you can not proceed with a new measure, and we'd stay at 5%. I am open to questions.
Okay, so Supervisor Mashburn? It's still here on mine. Okay, that's all right.
All right, just like the last one we saw, this tax is not a direct impact on our residents.
Correct.
And so I'm very appreciative that we're able to bring something like that when you look at all the other taxes that are going to be a direct impact to residents. That's great. As a matter of fact, this tax impacts those individuals who are coming to stay in our county but are not from here,
Right.
but who are going to be utilizing our resources in the county, whether that's the sheriff's office or the, I'm just saying, I hope not, but that happens. It happens. They have the potential to impact resources within our county.
Right.
And so I feel that it is an appropriate tax. I'm shocked to see the disparity between us and everybody else in the region. I find that you've hit that middle ground just right in there. And again, this is one of those policies that we just talked about earlier today that we need to put in place ahead of time so that everybody knows what it costs, right? We're getting ahead of the curve. And so if they want to put their businesses here, and we're going to be looking at expansion of agritourism and all these other industries along the corridor and all those things, this is much needed, and it's needed now, and we can get it in place. So I would love to move this one as well. Thank you, ma'am. And unless there's any other public comment or any other supervisors.
Before we go any farther, so you're good in terms, okay, so I heard the motion in a second, and you're good over here. Is there anybody on the phone or any cards or anything like that? All right, so it's been properly moved and seconded. I guess we can vote. And thank you, it's nice to see you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so let's get glasses that I can see in. All right. So, all right, so item 28 is closed session.
Board member comments?
Board member comments, well, it says, I need to touch, yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, that's right, because I skipped down. Why do I do that? Okay. Board member comments and reports on meetings, whatever it is that you would like to do. So I will go to my left and start with Supervisor James.
Thank you, Chair. This weekend is the Stars, Stripes, and Carnival Lights, the Solano County Fair, June 11th through the 14th. June 11th is the opening day, and it's Family Ag Day. It's $3, all day, all ages. And then June 13th is the Junior Livestock Auction begins, and also I'll be out there in all the dust, and the Destruction Derby, which starts at 6 o'clock. Also next...
Are you going to be driving?
Unfortunately, they wouldn't let me.
Okay.
So
okay.
I would love to partake in the driving activities, but my boys love the Derby, so we'll be dusty. And that's set to start at 6 o'clock, and sometimes they start a little bit later. Next week, we heard from Rhonda earlier. It is the American Red Cross in conjunction with the Vallejo Juneteenth. We'll be holding the blood drive, which is next Saturday. It's also the same day as Vallejo Juneteenth. There will be a parade starting at 9, and then Juneteenth festival will start approximately at 11 or 12. But this blood drive will be taking place across the street from where the festivities will be taking place. So Juneteenth is on the waterfront, and across the street in the Vallejo room will be the blood drive. And I did sign up to partake in the parade, in the festival, and in the blood drive. So thank you so much. No, I'm not getting dumped this time. That's only October for the Vallejo Fest.
I was impressed of how you could do that and still run what was going on over here.
She asked me before the meeting started.
Oh, well, I was giving, okay. Okay. Here, I was giving you a lot of credit. I would not even have been honest like that. Okay. Supervisor Mashburn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of things. One is that I will also be at the fair. Literally, my daughter is part of the livestock auction, so I leave from here today and I become a carny for the next week. Right, I'm gonna be down there at the fair. There you go. All right, bid heavy and often. It's all for the kids. Next, on a sadder note, I have two remembrances. The first is Kenneth Burkett. He passed away at age 87 peacefully on May 27th in Dixon, California. He was born in 1939. He lived a life marked by love, dedication, and deep appreciation of family and friends. He was known for his kindness, his quiet strength, and his unwavering devotion to those he loved. He cherished time spent with his family and took great pride in the accomplishments and happiness of each generation. His warm heart, generous spirit, and gentle nature touched the lives of many and created memories that will be treasured forever. He's survived by his beloved wife, Donna, his daughter, Allison, his granddaughters, Chelsea and Haley. He treasured his great-grandchildren who brought immeasurable joy and pride to his life. His greatest happiness came from being surrounded by his family, and the love he shared with them will continue to live on for generations to come. The next is Lancer, or Lance Thielen. And this one's a little more personal. I worked with Lance for about 30 years at the sheriff's office. Lance passed away peacefully on May 11th of 2026, leaving behind a legacy of service and dedication and integrity. Mr. Thielen devoted his life to protecting and serving others through a distinguished career in law enforcement. He began his service in the California Highway Patrol and survived a tragic line-of-duty incident on May 23, 1976 in Solano County, during which his partner, Officer Gary L. Hughes, lost his life. Despite sustaining serious injuries, Mr. Thielen demonstrated remarkable resilience and continued his commitment to public safety. Following his service with the California Highway Patrol, Mr. Thielen continued his career with the Solano County Sheriff's Office, where he faithfully served the residents of Solano County for many years. Through his professionalism, leadership, and unwavering dedication, he earned the respect and admiration of his colleagues and the community he served. Beyond his career, Lancer was a devoted father and grandfather. He's survived by his son, Lance Thielen, and his beloved grandchildren, whom he loved dearly and cherished beyond measure. He took great pride in his family and found immense joy in spending time with them and watching them grow. He will be remembered as a man of courage, honor, and compassion. His steadfast commitment to public service and devotion to his family and friends and enduring strength in the face of adversity touched countless lives. His legacy will live on through those who had the privilege of knowing him and serving alongside him. He will be deeply missed and forever remembered by his son, grandchildren, and extended family and friends, fellow law enforcement officers, and all those whose lives he touched. Thank you.
Supervisor Williams.
Thank you, Chair Brown. Push the wrong button. Thank you. Well, first I want to start with just announcements. So on Thursday, June 24th, I'll be hosting Alternative Wastewater Town Hall here at the Solano Community Event Center from 6 to 7:30 p.m. with guest speakers Gina Gaison, Principal Wastewater Division Manager with Summit Engineering, and then Jake Lincoln from Closhina. This discussion is to discuss alternative options from traditional septic and sewer services for homes and businesses in the unincorporated communities. It'll be hosted here right after the SALT grant. And then in Suisun City, which we talked about today, was the Suisun City Juneteenth Family Block Party. That will take place June 20th and the 21st in the Suisun City waterfront from 10 to 5 p.m. on Saturday, the 20th. I'll be one of the guest speakers for that particular event. The city of Fairfield as well is hosting a Juneteenth celebration, and I think their performer is Sherelle. Have you heard of Sherelle before? No, okay. Well, anyway, it's a 1980s artist, right? You've heard her music. You've heard her music, but
don't assume all of us are over there with you on that, okay?
But she's an amazing artist. She does a lot of R&B. So great opportunity to take advantage of that as well. City of Fairfield, that will be on Saturday, June 20th. So that will take place. And then I want to announce that I have been elected by my peers on ABAG as the vice president of ABAG. Thank you. So I'm really looking forward to serving in that capacity. So, and I don't know if I can say that. Can I say that I'll be seeing you again for another 4 years here on this Board of Supervisors? So, yeah, great week. I'm very honored to just have the support of my community. So again, thank you very much for the opportunity to share what's going on in Fairfield and Suisun.
Okay, and I'm assuming down the road, we're going to have to vote to approve that? I mean, is that going to be coming from, I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing. It's never mind. Okay, so before we go to item number 28, which is a closed session, I'm going to ask County Council if we're going to report out. Okay, good. So, Carrie, are we going to report out under
There will
closed
not be a
session?
report out.
Oh, good, thank heavens. So because of that, and we've done our others, and before we read the title, I just want to let everybody know that we will not have another board meeting until June 23rd. We're getting close to where we're going to have some Tuesdays off. I can hardly wait. All right, so to the clerk of the board, please, if you would read the title for Agenda 28, please.
Conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, Solano County representatives and employee organizations as listed in the agenda, and conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, In-Home Supportive Services Authority representatives and employee organizations as listed in the agenda.
I remembered, because I'm not used to violence. I just don't do that. All right, I'm assuming we're meeting upstairs. All right, so this meeting is adjourned until our next meeting on the 23rd of June. Weekend? No, it's not weekend yet. Oh, man, okay. Anyway, but you guys are all booked, practically.